I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Bring a date, your squad, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Warning. This show contains material that some listeners may find troubling, including discussions of intense horror movie themes, explicit language, movie spoilers, and women speaking. Listener discretion is advised.
What's that sound?
Hello, horror fans. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Eleanor.
And welcome to Horror Sandbox, the podcast where we dig around in horror films and see what we can unearth.
That's right. But before we get started with today's movie, Charlie, how are you coping with the horrors?
Well, before I get into my cope, I do just want to make a little shameless plug for us. I know that there's a lot of new listeners out there right now for us. So I just wanted to do a little reminder that if you're new here, please make sure to take a second if you're enjoying what we're doing and just go to our pages and subscribe to them or like our posts. Or if you're really feeling generous, give us a little review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That really makes our day. So just a little shameless plug there for that. Besides that, I'm coping pretty well. My mom's visiting, so she's in town, so she's helping take care of the two girlies and help me and my significant other out a bit. So we've just been relaxing. Last night we watched this movie together. We watched Obsession together, so that was fun because she's starting to listen to the podcast, so now I'm forcing her to watch all these movies with me. So
that's amazing. To be a fly on the wall to watch you two watch that would have been amazing.
It was a good time. We had a good little chat about it after. So yeah, so that's my cope. How are you coping?
I just got back from this really cute little magic themed festival that's a little ways from where I live. I ended up spending money mostly on books, but that's always a win. It was kind of like a tiny Ren Fair kind of a thing, much less massive than most Ren Fairs, but definitely scratched the itch. So that was nice. So yeah, that's how I'm coping.
Oh, that sounds so fun. We don't have anything like that down around here, and it's very sad. I miss it. I'll live vicariously through you. Your sister-in-law actually sent me pictures of you guys out there.
Yeah, Alice was with us, and we had a good time. It was just like a little local thing. They do it every year, and just a very like niche little festival, and it was a good time.
Cute. I love it. Well, this is going to be a fun episode today, so let's just go on and get into it. So, Eleanor, what are we digging into today?
We are digging into the 2025 movie Obsession. The IMDb movie summary is Baron, aka Bear, Bailey, breaks a novelty charm to force his co-worker Nikki Freeman to love him. But the supernatural compulsion warps her mind into violent obsession, trapping him in a nightmare he cannot wish away. It was written and directed by Curry Barker. It stars Andy Navarrete, Michael Johnston, Cooper Tomlinson, and Megan Lawless. And we can't dig around in a horror sandbox without our trusty rusty tools. So, Charlie, what is your Bloody Shovel award for Obsession?
Mine is a best symbolic use of a cat in a horror movie. And we are not going to get into it until the very, very end. But when we do, we're going to get very into it. So.
Oh, I am excited for that. I've seen a lot of commentary about the cat, but not too much about the symbolism other than what it means about Bear. But we can save that conversation for when it comes up.
Oh, yeah. There's so many aspects to the cat, and I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it's wonderful regardless. So what was your Bloody Shovel for this one?
I had to go with the most terrifying pterodactyl walk. And yes, I know I've never seen a pterodactyl walk, and neither has anyone listening to this podcast, but that doesn't matter. The only way to describe what Nikki does in this film is a pterodactyl walk. Emphasis on terror.
That's so funny because I'm like, oh yeah, pterodactyl walk. I see it. And then you were like, though no one's ever seen one walk. And it's like, oh wait, you're so right. That's so funny.
Yeah, but scientists don't need to study it. They can just watch that movie and they will know, in fact, how a pterodactyl would walk.
I love it. All right, let's get into it.
Let's. So the movie opens on the face of a young man in a diner. This is Bear. He is struggling to talk to someone across from him. He is saying, ever since we first met, you're the only person, sorry, this is weird. I don't talk like this. And the woman across from him says, no, it's okay, while he is nervously laughing. He then kind of focuses and he says, I feel like I'm coming apart. I think about you all the time, Nikki. I try not to. You're in every song I listen to. You're the only person who was nice to me when I moved here. At first, I thought that maybe you, well, I realized who you are. After Nana passed, you were the one who called. Even though I didn't have anything to say and we just sat there, I kept telling myself, don't tell her. She's too good. You'll lose her. But maybe you should know that I would choose you over everything. And then the woman across from him says, aw. But suddenly another man's voice cuts in and he says, nope, stop. That was cringy.
I have to ask, would this work on you? Because this would 100% work on me. Like, this movie could have ended right there if he had just actually said that to Nikki. Because how could you resist?
I don't know if this would work on me. I think it's situation dependent, but I think I kind of freeze up when somebody gets super emotional like this. And I think it would probably repel me.
Really? Aw. No, I love it.
I'm so serious. I don't do well. Like, I can't be super serious like this. I mean, there's been moments in my life, of course, and the romance I had with my husband, like, it was beautiful and wonderful, and we've been together all this time, but it's got to be funny. Like, whatever the conversation is, it's got to be kind of funny. If there were jokes peppered into what he said, maybe that would work. But the pure, like, oh, heart on my sleeve, gushing romance, I think I would cringe.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I do understand. And I do typically, like, PDA is a hard no for me. Anything too serious, like, yeah. But I don't know, if like my really good friend of so many years came up to me and just said this to me, I'd be like, well, we have to give it a shot. It would just, I don't know, it would work for me.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some version of this that would work for me. But the way this is going, I think Ian is correct here. I think it was too cringy. We then kind of zoom out and we see that the person sitting across from Bear is actually an employee of the diner. His friend Ian is sitting nearby and just roasting this heartfelt speech that we just saw. Bear is like, I knew it. And he profusely apologizes to the waitress, which he absolutely should, because I'm sorry, that's weird. She says that she thought it was really sweet and Ian tries giving him points for the next time, but Bear doesn't want to practice again. Ian says that if he tried that on Nikki, she would vomit. And Bear says, you told me to pour my heart out. Do you know how vulnerable I just got? Ian says that he needs to be a lot less sappy with Nikki because that just isn't her style. The waitress suggests getting her a nice gift. And then Ian kind of looks at her weird and is like, thank you, in like this super dismissive way that I thought was kind of rude. She gets up to leave and Bear again apologizes and she seems unbothered, but I still think that was super weird. And then Ian says that he needs to invite romance by teasing her and being playfully mean to her. And wow, Ian, what kind of gross bro podcast do you listen to?
Without a doubt, Ian definitely listens to Gross Bro podcast. And actually, I just watched an interview with Michael Johnston, and he says that his internal like backstory for Bear also listens to Gross Bro podcasts and does a lot of doom scrolling on his phone to get his relationship advice.
Yeah, I think that definitely comes across in the character. Ian tells Bear specifically that he should call her Freaky Nikki because it's something that people called her when she was being bullied in high school. And Bear says, no, she's like super sensitive about that. Then Ian suggests just being straight with her and being like, hey, Nikki, I think we should grab a drink sometime. And I found this phrasing super interesting because he is not asking. He's making a statement. And again, this is that gross bro podcast energy.
Yeah, I truly think that Ian is sabotaging Bear here intentionally. I don't think he's giving him any legit advice at this point because the Freaky Nikki thing alone, like, that's such bad advice. It's awful.
No, it's stupid. It's really stupid. And yeah, I think we see a little bit of that elsewhere too, where he's kind of sabotaging him. Bear points out that he has asked her out for drinks, but she always invites Ian along. And he asks Ian to stay away from trivia for just one night. And then Ian says that Bear can't try to do this at trivia night. And anyways, he lives for trivia night Wednesdays, so he can't ask her out there. Ian also says, I wake up every Wednesday morning rock hard thinking about trivia. You can't turn our weekly gathering of camaraderie and skill into a 7-year late promposal. Bear is still reeling with embarrassment, and he says, then when do I ask? And Ian is like, literally any other time. And he says that he should wait for the right time and that all he has is time. And Bear agrees. In the next scene, we see a close-up of what is supposed to be a dead cat on the floor of a house. It actually, to me at least, it looked like somebody's old stuffy got put through the washing machine several times. And we've talked about this before, but when it comes to dead babies and dead cats, we both absolutely prefer that they look a little bit fake. There is foamy vomit on the floor, and then Bear arrives. And this is his cat, Sandy, that has died, and he's really upset. But, okay, I know this is a tiny thing, but Sandy is a very strange name for a cat, right? Like, what's the weirdest cat name you've ever seen?
I mean, I love weird cat names, and I think the weirdest / my favorite is Tortellini. I just think it's so cute.
Whose cat is named Tortellini? Did you have a Tortellini?
No,
cat?
I don't even remember. I was sitting there racking my brain, and I don't know if it's someone I knew or if it was literally like a Reddit post I read, but someone said they named their cat Tortellini, and I was like filing that one away for later.
Was it a tortoiseshell cat?
Well, it has to be, right?
Right, yeah, it would have to be.
Yes. We do have a neighborhood cat that our family calls Garbage because he lives out of the garbage, but
My sister literally has a cat named Garbage.
I feel like it's a good cat name.
Well, actually, her government name is Regina George from Mean Girls.
Oh, from Mean Girls.
Yeah.
I love that. Her government name.
Well, and she's like, the only time it gets used is at the vet. So when it's her time to go, they're like, Regina George. And she's like,
That is,
but nobody calls her that. They all call her Garbage.
I love that so much, though. That's perfect. If we, which I never will, get another cat. Love cats. I can't do it. But if we ever do, I'm saving that one as well because that's hilarious. And my significant other loves Mean Girls. So,
Oh, that's good. There is a neighborhood cat too here, and he's a menace. And when we first moved in, he bit my son, and I had to take him to the doctor. So we call that cat Rabies.
yes, rabies, as you should. It's funny. I know that story. I know about that cat, and you said it again, and I'm like, oh, did you get rabies shots? Because F rabies. What a jerk.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, he's fine. Nobody has rabies, but we definitely call him Rabies because he's terrible. What's also terrible is that Bear has found his dead cat on the floor of his living room, and he finds a bottle of prescription drugs on the floor, and it seems like Sandy somehow got into the pills. And okay, I would like to argue that this is actually the most unrealistic part of the movie. There has never been a cat who has willingly taken pills.
No, you're absolutely right. I have to get my cat right now. I have to give her pills for a bladder issue that she's having. And I'm trying to put them in snacks, but if that doesn't work, it's literally a wrestling match to like gag them down the back of her throat. It's awful. I hate everything about it. But more importantly here, did you notice the bag of food that's open next to the pills on the floor in the scene?
Oh, yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty clear that Bear has been neglecting this cat and he's not feeding it. So what happened to make this cat eat those pills is that it ripped open the bag of food in desperation. And as it was doing that, it also knocked over the pills off the counter and the two things kind of mixed together. So that's the cat was eating the pills and the food at the same time. And there's also like a bunch of random open cans of empty wet cat food on the floor there. So like he didn't take the wet cat food out of the can for the cat. He didn't clean it up later. He just leaves out open cans for the cat. Like he's not taking very good care of this cat at all. So that's pretty obvious here and important for later. And also, random fact, but on the very bottom of the pill bottle, it's written in Sharpie. It says, "Do not eat," with 2 exclamation points.
Wait, what? It's a pill. Wait, is this a suppository?
Oh, no, it's oxycodone, I'm pretty sure, which I don't think they give you as a suppository. It's just if you pause it and like zoom in, it just says "do not eat" in black Sharpie on the bottom of the pill bottle.
I wonder if Oxy would be more fun if it was a suppository.
It would certainly be effective, I think.
No, but I didn't notice that. That's interesting. Why did they do that? Do you know?
No, I don't know for sure. Because actually later in the film, if you look at his search history results, he does search oxycodone. So it could be like he searched that and was like, oh, don't take this one, but it specifically says do not eat. So I think it's just a little Easter egg.
Weird. Okay. We then watch Bear dispose of Sandy in a trash bag and clean the floors, and then we see him sobbing in his bedroom. There's a photo that's like one of those printouts from a photo booth, and it has him and Ian and Nikki and Sarah, who we will meet later. It's got the words Bass Clef Bandits on it, and we learn later that they work in a music store, so I think this is just like they're kind of riffing on work, right?
I think so. I think that's also the name of their trivia team as well. So I don't know how they came up with it, but it's what their little crew, what they call themselves.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And then as he's sitting there, he's sobbing the words, "Why can't she just," like as he's choking on his tears. And I don't think he's crying over the cat here.
No, there's no way he's crying over the cat here. Like, he literally just put the cat in a trash bag and kept the trash bag in his house instead of burying it or like taking it to the vet to get cremated. There's no way he's crying over the cat. And to confirm this, in the original screenplay, when he's crying, it says, quote, "probably about the cat or Nikki or his life, maybe all of the above," end quote.
Yikes. Yeah, that's rough. I know when my elderly cat passed, I rushed to an emergency vet and like I wrapped him up in a baby blanket and took him in, and I was like, "I think he's gone, but can you make sure?" As I'm like sobbing.
Oh,
I know. It was so
I think that's
sad.
what I would do too, but it is, yeah, it's just so sad.
It's so sad. I was almost really mean to somebody because they were there to put their cat down, and she was telling me all about it. It was 2 a.m. Very grateful that this clinic was there and had 24-hour emergency services. But this woman was just telling me how she was going to take her cat in to get put down, and she wouldn't shut up. And I was almost so mean to her. Like, you can tell I've been crying, and it's 2:30 a.m, and I don't care about your sob story. I care about mine. And also, that cat didn't look like it needed to be put down. So I was like, I wanted to yell at her.
Oh, and be like, spend more time with your cat, you jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it was very sweet. They sent me an impression of his paw and stuff afterwards. It was like heartbreaking.
I love vets that do that really take the time and like send you a little token of your animal after they pass away. R.I.P. kitty cat.
I know, he was a good boy. As Bear is sobbing on the bed, the camera pans down, and the quilt that he's sitting on this bed, it has the word obsession spelled out in the fabric. And I really liked this as a title card. It's really neat.
It is a fun title card. And I watched an interview with the production designer, Vivian Gray, and someone asked her if it was supposed to look like it was unraveling because it's fabric. So it's like, oh, is it unraveling the way that Nikki does? And she goes, no, it's actually the way they did the fabric on it. It's supposed to look like a festering wound that's only going to get worse if it's left unaddressed.
Ooh, I didn't pick up on that, but I can definitely see that looking back.
Yeah, I see it now. I didn't pick up on it either. I actually like the unraveling thing better, and so did she. But yeah, it was originally supposed to be a wound.
Later on that same bed, we see Bear doom scrolling, and it looks like he is stalking Nikki's Instagram photos. And I mean, this is probably relatable to a lot of people, but you better watch those thumbs, buddy. You're gonna hit that hard on accident.
Oh my gosh. And that fear is so amplified when you have children like randomly grabbing at your phone all day long. Now that we've started this podcast, I'm always so fearful that my child is gonna, when I'm looking at the podcast social media, that she's gonna grab it and like, I don't know, like respond to somebody or like follow or like do something wild on our social media page. It's such a fear of mine.
Yes. So listeners, if that ever happens, it's probably one of our kids. So sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hopefully it won't happen. But yes, it's definitely my daughter. If you get a message that's just like www.bddcfg.
If it's my kids, it'll be 600 emojis. So while he's doom scrolling, Nikki calls him and he answers. And she tells him about the music store where they both work and how it was a really busy day. And then she roasts him about taking the day off. And she asks what time he's going to be there for trivia. And he says he's probably not going to make it. She begs him to come out and she says she has something to tell him. It turns out she's putting in her 2 weeks notice at work. And he asks why, and she doesn't really answer, but she says that they're running out of time, so he should ignore whatever he was working on at home and come out to trivia. As she is saying this, he is staring at an old-fashioned cat clock. It's one of those ones where the eyes and the tail tick back and forth. So the clock is in the shape of a cat's body, and then it has a tail sticking down and then big eyes. And as the clock ticks, the eyes and the tail swing back and forth. I know I've seen them in older movies, like I think Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Back to the Future might have had them, but I could be misremembering that.
Yes. So I went way too hard on research for this movie, and I actually found a website about this cat clock, and it lists on it every movie that the cat clocks have ever shown up in. And you are correct. It is in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Back to the Future. And the other one I saw that was of note to me was that it's in the background of Stranger Things as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is. It totally is. Would you get one of these?
I don't know. I don't think so. Well, I have a real problem with noises, and it seems like it would click loudly, and that would not work for me. And I don't like the constant movement. I think that would bother me as well. I'm kind of weird, so.
Yeah, I go back and forth between like, it's actually a little too creepy for me, and it's actually a little too cutesy for me. I can't decide. It's the uncanny valley of creepy.
It is. And it just doesn't fit your house decor. It really doesn't.
Nope, not a single spot would this clock make sense.
No. So, yes, but they're cute. I mean, they're fun, but no, I would not own one.
And Bear says that Nikki is right, and he agrees to come out. And he says, tonight's the night. And as they're talking, Nikki suddenly goes, oh shit, damn it. And then she's cursing up a storm, and it turns out she dropped her crystal necklace down the drain. So she has lost her necklace. Later, we are inside of a witchy store.
Yes, and this is a real shop in Burbank, California, and it's been there for a really long time. The reason that they shot there is because they did this whole movie with a really small budget in 20 days. So Curry Barker, he just used real historic places in California, and this was one of the places they used. They didn't have to change much about it, so it was very convenient.
That's really neat. I would love to go visit the store, and we have to add it to our little road trip list of places. But I've never been to California.
Me neither. I've done like everything on the East Coast and everything in the Midwest, but like Oregon, Washington, California, I gotta hit all those still. I haven't done it.
I've been to Oregon and I've been to Washington, but I've never been to California. I mean, technically one time I flew through LAX, but that barely counts.
All right. Well, we have to go. We'll just set up a spooky road trip all along the coast there. It'll be fun.
Hell yeah. Bear enters this witchy store, and the woman at the counter says they're closing soon, and so to let her know if he needs any help. Bear asks if they have any crystal necklaces, and she's on the phone with some of those wireless earbuds, so she's doing that thing where she's talking to someone else but looking at him, and she points out the necklaces and says every rock has its own energy. Bear asks for one that's kind of like good vibes, and she pulls out citrine, and she says it's sunshine in a box. But he puts it back because he thinks Nikki would hate it. And then he sees a shelf with these old-fashioned toys on it and starts to kind of focus on that.
So I paused this and I looked very closely at this shelf, and my daughter actually has one of the toys on the shelf. The chromoscopes there, she has the exact same one that's on this shelf. And I unfortunately am reporting that it has no magical powers that I'm aware of, but I kind of want to make this shelf in my house. And also, did you notice the price of the One Wish Willow?
Oh, no, I didn't.
It's $6.99, and I bet that is comedic. I am sure he did that for comedy.
Oh, like 69?
Yeah, 69. It has to be.
Oh my God. Yeah. I could see that with some of his, I've seen some of his shorts, and I could definitely see that.
I'm pretty convinced. I've not seen anything for sure on it, but it made me giggle at least.
Because if he was going to lean into it being like evil, he could do 666.
Right. Yeah, I think it's just funny.
Yeah. Also on the shelf, we see the One Wish Willow. It's in a little red and white box and says that you only get one wish and to spark the middle and break in half. So
I am going to talk extensively about the design of the One Wish Willow at the very end of this episode, but I do think I figured out, especially since you just said spark in the middle, I think I figured out what that means. In the script, when Bear opens the One Wish Willow in the car, in the script, it says when he opens the box, it pops and then sparks light the stick. And I think it's kind of like it's supposed to be one of those little firecracker box kind of things. So when you open it and the jingle starts to play, it's also supposed to let out a little spark. And I tried to watch it in slow motion and you can't see a spark there. So I don't know if it's like an issue with the special effects or something that happened in the filming that you just can't see it, but it is supposed to spark when you open the box and pull it out.
Oh, wait. What if it didn't spark because it was a bad wish?
Yeah, I think some things happen because of bad wishes or not listening to instructions, but we'll talk about that more later.
Okay. Interesting. Bear ends up buying one of these One Wish Willows, and the woman who works there tells him not to come back in complaining. And she says that they're collectible, so some people never open them, but the ones who do come back and complain. And Bear goes, because it's like a scam, and then she stops and looks at him and goes, dude, we are not scammers. And then he asks if the complaints are that it doesn't work or that it works and ruins their lives. She goes, yeah, or they die, or they wish they were dead. But it kind of seems like she's being sarcastic here. Later at the pub, which, by the way, I'm sure you noticed was called Barker's Pub.
I did. And it's funny because Curry Barker had no idea that it was going to be called Barker's Pub. The crew surprised him with that.
Oh, that's cute.
It is cute.
Nikki and Sarah are having an animated discussion about the music store where they all work. Sarah is giving Nikki a hard time about working on a book that she's writing when she's on the clock in the store. And Sarah is also talking about wanting to go to art school and becoming a tattoo artist. Ian is trying to get them to talk about literally anything other than work, and Bear is trying to subtly get Ian's attention to get him to get Sarah out of there so he can talk to Nikki alone. Ian is mouthing, no, I'm not doing that. And then Nikki cuts in to say, what the fuck are you two doing? Bear plays it off, and then Ian says that they really need to focus on trivia. Nikki says she's going to go get drinks, and Bear goes with her while Ian is mouthing after, as in after trivia night. And either Ian is very serious about trivia or he is straight up trying to stop this from happening at all.
He's definitely just trying to stop this from happening. Nobody's waking up hard to the thought of trivia in the morning.
No,
Granted, there's some good trivia nights, but...
Yeah, that felt like one of their shorts that they did before. Like that waking up hard for trivia. I have to do trivia. You can't do this to me. Like it definitely felt like one of their YouTube shorts.
It does. It definitely does. Yeah, I definitely think he's just trying to cockblock Bear here.
Nikki orders shots for everyone, and Bear orders a pina colada. Nikki roasts him for getting a girly drink, and then she asks what was so important that he had to work on it all day and couldn't go into the store. He starts to list things, but she interrupts him and is just like, oh, okay, so you watch TV all day? And he's like, yep. And then they both laugh. He starts to ask her out, but then the bartender asks for a payment, and then he tries again, but Ian interrupts them to tell them that Sarah just informed them that their boss, who is also Sarah's dad, keeps a gun in the record store, which none of them knew. And Nikki is like, are you serious? And Ian says, dead serious. And that is some foreshadowing right there. And a Chekhov's gun. Then Sarah shows up right when the shots arrive. They all toast to poor, dearly departed Sandy. And then the trivia game starts. Sarah asks why Sandy, and he tells Sarah that she died. Sarah gives him a huge hug right as the trivia guy starts asking about a film featuring a genie who grants 3 wishes.
Yes, and this is a very obvious nod at Aladdin and the rules of the One Wish Willow. So the rules in Aladdin, I don't know if you remember them, but it's you can't wish for anyone to die, you can't force love, and you can't raise the dead. The One Wish Willow, the only rules are no killing and no raising the dead. So the forcing love thing is not one of the One Wish Willow rules.
Probably should be, though, as Bear will learn. Or I guess he doesn't really learn shit, does he? Later, outside, Ian is trying to talk everyone into going to karaoke, but Nikki just wants to leave. Bear says that he can drive her home, and then Nikki asks for cash and then goes to give it to someone who's looks like they're living on the streets. Bear is looking at her dreamily while she does this, and as they depart, Ian says, get your girl home safe, and Nikki smacks him and says, ew, don't say it like that. On the drive home, Nikki and Bear talk about Sandy. Nikki says that Bear can always call her, and he mentions how weird it will be not seeing her at work every day. She says she needs a change in life to help her write the story that she's trying to write. And she says she isn't feeling love right now, and she needs to feel love if she wants to bring her story to life. Nikki also says that Bear is the only person she gets to talk to about this stuff, and he isn't just a total complete brick wall. And then Bear mentions that he has a gift for her, and she looks concerned and she goes, ew, no, why does this make me nervous? And why does it make her nervous? Also, we need to talk about the fact that she says, ew, no, a couple of times and is ignored.
Well, okay, so we've already learned that we would approach scenarios very differently, but that reaction, that's something I would do when I'm nervous. Like if something just makes me uncomfortable, I'll just be like, have you ever done that?
I definitely have weird nervous reactions, and I've probably been extremely awkward in romantic scenarios, but I don't know. I don't know that I would say, every time I don't know. Maybe I would. I don't know.
I think I would. But so this is my interpretation of what's happening here. I think she kind of likes him, but they've just been friends for so long. I think Ian hints at the fact that they've been friends for 7 years now, that each one of them is way too nervous about like the idea of making a move because they are best friends. So they're in this like weird little loop of like they care about each other, they like each other, but they've been best friends for so long. Like there's no way we could date. And I think that's where the no is coming from. But I don't know. I will say there was a Q&A with the Obsession cast, and Curry Barker, he says that if you look at Nikki in the scene that's coming up, that's about to happen, where Nikki asks Bear if he has feelings for her and Bear says no, Nikki does look disappointed. And Curry Barker says that had Bear just told her that Nikki might have given him a chance.
Yeah, or even if she didn't want that, at least he would know where she stood and where they stood. But that's not where this movie goes.
No, not at all. And it's because Bear's afraid of rejection.
They pull up to her house, and Nikki says that Sarah seems to like him and asks him how he feels about that. And he says that he likes her as a friend. She also says that when she has a crush on a guy, no one knows, which to your point earlier about it might be that she likes him, it almost seemed like she was dropping a hint there, right? Like maybe she does like him. She wants him to try.
Yep, I think so.
Bear tries to ask her out again, but then he bails out. And then as she's leaving to go inside, he says, "Goodnight, freaky Nikki." And she says, "Ew, don't call me that. And I don't like that." And she gets really upset. And then she comes back and she point blank asks him if he likes her. And she says, if so, now is the time to tell her. He chokes up again. And then he stammers and he just says that he thinks that they're really good friends. And she says, "Okay, good night," and leaves. As he's sitting there in the car, kind of beating himself up, he grabs the One Wish Willow, and then a song plays when the box opens. And he says, "I wish Nikki Freeman loved me more than anyone in the fucking world." And he snaps the willow, and nothing happens. He kind of chuckles at himself and starts to leave, but then Nikki comes back to the car and asks about the gift. And he says he left it at home, but he can bring it to work tomorrow. She asks if he wants to come inside, and then she says, "I did just lose my cat." But then Bear's like, "What?" And Nikki goes, "No, wait, you lost your cat." She invites him in again, and he asks if she is okay. And then she says it again, and then she goes, "Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry." And then her face and her tone are so odd here. Bear starts laughing nervously, and he says that he is confused and Nikki must just be drunk. She then kind of snaps out of it, and she says, "Wait, what the fuck?" as she's looking around. It is one of those changes that we see in her, where she goes from being the Nikki who has been impacted by the One Wish Willow and real Nikki. And then she kind of reverts back, and then she says, "I'm acting so weird," while Bear is like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Yeah. Have you seen the mirror theory at all that's going around social media?
I did see that. It's basically like anytime she can see herself in the mirror, she kind of snaps out of it. But I don't know that that's true, because one of the examples I give is seeing her reflection in like a brown glass bottle, like a beer bottle. And I don't know that you would see yourself very well in one of those, especially from the distance that is present in that scene. So I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sold on it either, because I think there's once or twice where if that is the case, the reflection would have to be Bear's eye, which is also kind of hard to see. But I don't know. I do like the idea of it, because the first time it happens is when she's looking into the side view mirror here in this scene. I think what's the most compelling or the most interesting part of that theory is that the freaky Nikki or fake Nikki, whatever you want to call her, she doesn't like to sleep in that one spot in the bed, because right on the other side of the bed where she sleeps is a mirror. Like, she's afraid of that mirror. I don't know. I like that. But again, I've not seen anything confirmed on it, and I don't talk about it at the end. I just thought it was a fun little tidbit.
Yeah, it is fun. I just don't know that I agree with it.
It could be that maybe Nikki can break through easier when she sees her reflection, but it's not the only way she could break through, because there are times that there's no way she's seeing her reflection and she comes back.
Yeah, I could buy that. Nikki opens Bear's door on his side, on the driver's side, and tries to unbuckle him. And then she suddenly stops and she says, actually, no. And then she stands up and she crosses her arms like she's throwing a tantrum. And then she gets like this weird cutesy voice and she says, I know what you're trying to do. And then she gets back in the car and he says she's really freaking him out. And she says that she must be pretty fucked up. She also says she can't be alone right now because her dad is dying. And then she starts sobbing and saying that she can't go back in the house. And then she gets really quiet and asks if they can just leave. And so they do. They go to his place, which was his grandma's, but he inherited it after she died. She says that the house smells like him in a good way, and she says she really likes it there. And then we see her in his bed, and he's like, let me know if you need Advil or anything. She apologizes for being really weird, and he says it's fine, and then he says good night.
Yeah, and if you look on the posters on Bear's wall here, there's one of them on the right side that I am pretty sure is a poster of Pedrolino, who is a clown character that I'll talk about at the end when we talk about Bear.
I have never heard of Pedrolino.
I think you have. You've at least seen him, but we'll get into it. We'll get into it at the end.
Okay, good. We got clowns in this movie, hitting all kinds of fears. As Bear says goodnight, Nikki says wait and asks if he will sleep with her. He says yes, and then she takes off her shirt. So now she's just wearing a bra and her pants. Bear decides to sleep in jeans, so that's villain energy. Nikki cuddles up to Bear and she says that she really needed it, and Bear asks why. And he looks kind of terrified / in disbelief. And then she says she's sorry about his cat and she kisses him. And he looks really sad and happy and relieved all at the same time. This actor is very talented, I think.
I think at this point, like Bear's he starts out as a good guy and then he obviously turns into a real villain by the end. And I think this is one of those moments of transition where he's like, am I taking advantage of her? Is this okay? And he's trying to be a good guy. And that's that all those mix of emotions that we're seeing in his face. And he does. I do like this actor. He does a good job.
Yeah, I get that, but I was also getting the whole like, this is my literal dream come true and it's everything I wanted, and I'm afraid if I believe that this is really happening right now, I'm going to wake up and it's a dream.
Yes, that too. That it absolutely comes across here. And there's definitely like, okay, I'm a little nervous and afraid of this, but also like, this is the happiest I've ever been. This is everything I've ever wanted. You can see it all in his face.
They go from just this one kiss to starting to really make out. And then all of a sudden she snaps back and she goes, what the fuck? And then she leaps back off the bed and her face looks horrified and she is incredible. She is so good in this.
She is. The facial expressions she makes, they're so good. I watched an interview with her where she said that she's always worn like her emotions on her face very clearly, and her mom used to always tell her to watch her face, which you've told me to do that many a times, especially after staff meetings, which made me giggle. But she is really good at acting and she has some crazy cool facial expressions.
Remember that commander who would stop talking and look at me and go, what? In the middle of like an all call or something?
Yes, I do, which is funny because I would do the same thing. Like I made faces to the point where like during a meeting you text me, you were like, watch your face.
You had every right to be making that face. I just didn't want it to come back to bite you in the ass.
And I'm over there like, I'm making this face intentionally. I don't give a shit.
As this chaotic scene where her face totally changed and she looks horrified and is screaming and leapt back. As this happens, it almost is over as soon as it starts. And she pops back up off the floor. And then she says, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And Bear's like, you kissed me. So it's very clear that he's having that battle of, I don't know if we should do this because I don't want to take advantage, or I don't want her to think that's what I'm doing. So you could argue that he knows she wasn't really into this, but I don't know. It's all very weird.
It's very weird. In this moment, and I promise I won't give him grace later in the movie, but in this moment, I do think he's genuinely a little confused. He definitely knows that doing anything with her right now is wrong, and ultimately chooses to sleep on the floor. So like, not total villain energy yet. But yeah, he's definitely confused right here.
Yeah, I think so too. She says that she thought she saw something and that's why she got scared. And then she just keeps apologizing. Bear is super distraught and says that she made him feel like he did something she didn't want. She says that she just thought she saw something and it scared her. And then she changes it and says that she actually had a panic attack. And then she starts crying again and she says I'm just so lost, but it sounds super fake. Like it sounds like she's fake crying and she's doing a fake cutesy voice and saying, I'm so lost. And it just comes across like she's just trying to distract him from that moment. And then later we see Bear is sleeping on the floor while Nikki is laying in bed. And he gets up and he goes to his laptop in the middle of the night and he looks up the One Wish Willow. And he opens up what looks like kind of a Reddit kind of a page, like a forum or a blog. And on it, half of the people are saying that these things work and the other people are just roasting them. So it's very Reddit energy. And then when he goes back to his room, Nikki is sitting straight up in bed with the lights on and she asked him where he was and he says he was in the bathroom. And then she asked him to get back into the bed with her and he hesitates at first but eventually joins her.
So there's some fun Easter eggs on these web pages that really, I don't think they add that much to like the plot of the movie, but they're fun. So I want to take a quick pause and talk about them. Are you familiar with the Mandela effect? Have you ever heard of that?
Yes. A bunch of people didn't want to admit that they were bad at remembering things, so they invented like a weird glitch in the universe.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So it's a phenomenon where a large group of people collectively share a false or distorted memory of a specific fact or like a pop culture detail. And there's two very common examples of this, which actually, I'm going to be honest with you, they got me. There's The Fruit of the Loom. Have you seen that one?
Okay, I know I was being flippant and dismissive of this, but the Fruit of the Loom one, I absolutely have that one.
Yes, because everybody thinks that the Fruit of the Loom logo has a cornucopia basket. But if you go back and you look at all of the company's brands logos over time, there has never been a cornucopia basket on the Fruit of the Loom logo. And the other one, and these are relevant, is the Berenstain Bears. It's a famous children's book series, and the name of the bears ends with an AIN, but almost everyone in the world recalls it as an EIN, which is also how I recall it. But why any of that matters here is if you look at the search results on the first page, the first article on this page says, quote, Mandela effect, did One Wish Willow really exist in the 80s, end quote. And then on the very bottom of it, there's other suggested search result options, and one of them is for Fruit of the Loom. And then if you look at the usernames, one of the users is Berenstain Bear Facts.
Oh my God, no, I didn't catch any of that. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's just like a fun little Easter egg saying that potentially the One Wish Willow went through the Mandela effect and a bunch of people forgot it ever even existed in the first place. So yeah.
And if it didn't exist in the 80s, then where's it from?
Exactly. Do.
The next morning, Bear wakes up to find that Nikki has made him a full breakfast, and she has also made a shrine with the corpse of Sandy on it, and it's in the middle of the kitchen. She has put this cat on a cushion and surrounded her with flowers and candles and cards. And as Bear finds this, he looks horrified. And then Nikki comes in and she's like, oh no, you're supposed to like it. It's a memorial. But then Bear says, no, this is fucked up. And this should alarm him a lot more than the odd behavior the night before, right? Like she was already acting bizarrely, and now she's acting like she doesn't know how things work.
Yeah, like he's known Nikki for 7 years. If he had any inclination that she was the kind of person to just do random dead pet shrines in the middle of the kitchen, he would know by this point in her life. So this should set off all the alarm bells because she is not acting normal here. Not at all.
Yeah, definitely not. And later at the music shop, their boss, Carter, asks Nikki to help him with some plug-in keyboard things so that he doesn't have to deal with a Karen. And then Nikki scolds him for calling people Karens. While this is going on, Bear grabs Ian and they go to the back of the store for a quick bro debrief. And Bear says it was a really crazy night, and Ian thinks that they slept together because they both came to work together. While they're talking, Nikki is watching them from the other side of the store, and Bear is like, just act normal to Ian. And then he says that Nikki is going through something, and then he tells him about her dad, and Ian's like, really? Her dad in Washington that she doesn't care about? But Bear says that this is still impacting her, and he thinks that she's having some sort of a mental breakdown. And then he describes some of the night and the crazy personality shifts, and Ian's conclusion is that she was on Molly or some other drugs. And then Bear's like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Bear heads back to the front of the store while Nikki continues to stare at him. Later that night, after work, Bear says that he can't take Nikki home, so Ian takes her. And then then later, Bear and Ian are talking on the phone, and Ian is saying that everything's fine. He had a chat with Nikki, and Bear agrees that it was probably just drugs because he looked up the symptoms and all the symptoms match. And while he's talking, there's a knock on the door, and it's Nikki, and she's in a really pretty dress. And then she says she's sorry about last night and that she shouldn't have taken MDMA.
Yes. So MDMA is the same thing as Molly. It's also known as ecstasy. And according to Bear's search results in this movie, it definitely would have some of those symptoms that would have caused Nikki to act that way the night before. And I also did a little bit of searching to see if this is the way that someone would react to maybe a bad trip of Molly or something. And to an extent, so most notably, Molly is associated with heightened feelings of love and trust and empathy and sexual desire. So there's certainly that part of it. It's also been associated with anxiety and panic attacks, but it definitely doesn't go as far as how weird she was acting the night before. There are studies that have shown that people who use it over a long period of time may experience poor sleep, confusion, depression, anxiety, paranoia, and memory or attention problems. So, yeah, some of what Nikki was doing could definitely be because she was on Molly. I don't think to the extent that she did it, though, and I doubt that Molly has ever made anyone set up a dead cat memorial shrine in the kitchen.
Absolutely not. Acid, maybe. Molly, I don't think so.
Right. And to add on to that, I found out that the effects of Molly, they only typically last 3 to 6 hours. So it's not going into the next morning that strong, so probably not Molly.
Yeah. All of this should certainly be a clue to Bear. Bear asks Nikki if she remembers quote unquote stuff. And then she says she remembers some of it and she probably did some things that she wouldn't do otherwise. And then he gets really defensive and he says that he didn't know she was on drugs. And she says that she knows he wasn't taking advantage of her. And then in this shot, her face is really shadowed, but her eyes have like these glowing white lights in them. And I'm not imagining this, right? Like there's a few points in the movie where her eyes, they're very like she's in shadow, her eyes are very dark, but she has like these 2 little glints in them.
In this scene, they're so prevalent that they have to be there on purpose. I haven't found anything concrete. I will talk about it a little bit at the end. I do think it's intentional.
Yeah, I think so too. It's just a little bit uncanny and it's very eerie. She says that she knows that he likes her and at first he tries to deny it and then he asks if she likes him and she says, would it freak you out if I said yes? And then he asks how long and she says since Christmas and then he admits that he also has feelings for her. And then we get a montage of them making out and laughing together and spending time together and then grossing out Ian and Sarah with how all over each other that they are. And at one point, I think she makes like an AI cartoon out of them or something and she's showing him on the phone.
Not only does she make an AI cartoon out of them, but if you pause it and scroll in on it, it says some words on top. Those words are, quote, I want to wear your skin as a sweater. End quote.
What? No, really?
Yep. So the signs were always there. They were there.
Oh my God. And it's like that, like it's such a, I don't know, stereotypical cutesy cartoon version of them. I think I saw that there were letters, but I couldn't tell.
It happens so quick that you would never be able to read it if you didn't pause it like me and zoom in obsessively.
I want to wear your skin like a sweater. Ugh. You know what we don't see Nikki doing at any point in this montage? Writing.
It's true. She's definitely lost herself in this moment. And also, how long do you think this montage took place? Like, what amount of time do you think has transpired from beginning to end of montage?
Weeks, months, I don't know.
I think it's only days.
Really?
Yes, I could be wrong. I mean, they shot this quickly. They did it with a short budget. This might not be true, but if you look, they're really only wearing 3 different daytime outfits throughout the entire montage. They also wear their work outfits and their PJs, but technically this montage could only be a few days to a week long based off outfits alone.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because other than the clothes thing, I think they introduced the fact that Sarah is waiting for her art school letters. When they're at trivia, I think they talk about that, right? I think it's brought up. So it wouldn't be months because she would probably have everything by then. I think.
That's true. It certainly wouldn't be more than like 2 or 3 months because she would have gotten her letter by then. And there's also, I think it's Ian mentions it later, like how quickly their relationship starts. So I do think it's not as long as you think as this montage makes it seem to be. So this whole quote unquote like good period, it's not that long. It's really not.
Yeah. Oof. Their relationship really sparked, I guess. Later, we see them both in a restaurant together. Bear is ignoring a phone call from Ian, and then he asks Nikki about her dad, and she says she doesn't really want to talk about it. And then she starts asking him about what he wants to do as far as like a career or whatever in his life, and she admits that she doesn't really know. And he says that he's pretty private, so it's not surprising that she didn't know. And he says that she once called him a closed book, and she goes, "The good thing about a closed book is I get to read it from the start," which is a very cute line. Bear says that he wants to be a food critic. And then he does like a little bit where he's like imagining what it would be like. It's clear that he has no idea what a food critic does or what that would be like at all. So it seems like he just threw out something random, or maybe he truly doesn't have an answer for what he wants to do in life. Ian's calling him again, so Bear gets up to take that call because he's like, oh, I called twice, it's probably important. Ian says that he found out Nikki's dad doesn't have cancer. Ian also says that Sarah told him right before he and Nikki started dating that Nikki told Sarah she thought of Bear as a little brother. And we can now see Nikki is standing up from the table in the background and watching him. Ian says that she's got some weird mental issues right now and she has snapped and she's a different person. And this person is infatuated with him. Bear doesn't want to hear any of this, so he gets off the phone with Ian and then he sits back down at the table. As they're sitting there, Nikki gives him a very fancy velvet jewelry box, and inside is a crystal, and she says it's a tiger's eye. And this is a kind of crystal that brings confidence and willpower, and now he can use it to give him the confidence and willpower to be a food critic. And is that really what that symbolizes? Is that a real thing?
So I will say, to start, that there's no like one source that says like, okay, these are all the crystals in the world and this is what they symbolize. But I did, go to a couple a couple different websites to see what the general consensus on what these crystals symbolize is. And yes, they are known for confidence and willpower, but they're also known for seeing clearly and piercing through illusions. And there's a few times in this movie that real Nikki tries to give Bear hints that it isn't actually her. And I think that this might be the first hint, especially because if Bear really knew Nikki, he would know that she wouldn't give him something this important to her because she said it belonged to like her mom and her grandma. And now she's giving it to Bear. So I think her giving it to him in this moment is her being like, I would never do this. Please look through the illusion. This is not really me, and have the confidence and willpower to do the right thing here. And I also don't think it's a coincidence that it resembles the eye of a cat, but we'll get into the cat eye thing at the end.
Yeah, this is the first and not the last time of real Nikki doing that song from that one Rick and Morty episode where he's trapped in that body and he's like, let me out, let me out. This is not a dance. I'm begging for help. I'm screaming for help. Please just let me out.
It's a great dance. It's a great little jingle and song. But yes, this is, I think, the first of the many times that we see that.
Nikki says that she loves him and can't live without him. And then she does this kind of iconic, Bear, I love you so, 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 so much. And then he asks if she loves him more than anyone in the world. And then he asks if her dad really has cancer, and her face changes and she starts shaking her head. And she does this other really iconic scene where she goes, no, 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 don't do that. I thought we were having a nice date. Why does it matter? I thought we were having a nice date. And by the end of this, she's now standing and yelling, and everybody in the restaurant has stopped to stare. Bear grabs her hand and pulls her back down and says, we are, it's fine. And then she says, then why does it matter? And stares at him. And then he just says, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. The no, no, no in this scene. It's so good. And what I love about it especially is that she answers it. Like he says, does your dad have cancer? And she goes, no. And like, it's very serious and there's a pause. And then she goes into the no, 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 no. So it's so good. I love the subtlety and the way she acted in this scene. It's amazing.
Yeah, she is incredible. And this is just, it's very creepy too. And then we get what I am calling a sex jump scare. Like the cut from the restaurant to the bedroom is super abrupt and they are mid-thrust. But what's interesting about this scene is how Nikki looks like she is completely detached. Like she's moaning and making all the noises, but there's zero emotion in her face.
Yes, and the scene is disturbing and dark, and it was originally written to be even darker than this. I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'm going to talk about it at the end, but I will say I think it's dark enough that if you're someone that's triggered by sexual assault, you may want to skip the couple minutes where we talk about this in our deep dive, because it's not fun. It's not fun.
Yeah, like we say, protect your mental health. So if that's not for you, just skip it. Later, Bear wakes up and Nikki is not in bed. It's 3:45 in the morning and he calls out for her. And on the other side of the room, in a dark corner, we can see her standing against a wall. And she says, "Go back to sleep," in like this really detached, kind of quiet voice. And then Nikki does this insane, crooked, unnatural jerking movement. And she is doing my Bloody Shovel Award, the most terrifying, horrifying pterodactyl walk in the dark, and it's so creepy.
Yes, and of course, we would be remiss if we didn't briefly talk about the Uncanny Valley makeup here. It's so cool. It's totally taken over the internet. So many people have recreated this makeup because it's relatively simple. There's no CGI or any kind of special effects here. It's just makeup, and she just put these shadows in just the right place that while Nikki's standing in the corner and does that crying, it is so freaky looking. And Indy, the actress who plays Nikki, said that this is the only scene of the movie she cannot watch. She refuses to watch it because she can't see herself with that makeup on.
Yeah, I don't blame her. That makeup is incredibly well done. I saw this in theater and it was very chilling. And I wondered in the moment, like, how did they do this? Was this CGI? Is this a mask? Like, how did they get this effect? But the fact that it's all practical and it's just makeup, that is a talented artist.
Yeah, it's really cool. We'll post a picture of just the makeup when we post this episode because it's really unique the way they did it. I couldn't even describe it and do it justice, so we'll post a photo of it, but it's very cool.
Gotta love the Uncanny Valley makeup. As she's standing there, she's wearing one of Bear's really big cardigan sweaters and I think just underwear at that point. He asks what she's doing and she whispers, "Watching you sleep. You're so cute when you sleep." But there is no expression or emotion in her voice when she's saying this. It's very empty. And then he asks her to come back to bed, but then she does that horrible pterodactyl walk again and walks back into the corner and she says no. And then she starts crying. And then, like in this really tiny kid voice, she goes, "I don't like my dreams." And then she starts sobbing really loudly. And then she screams, or not, it's not quite a scream, but she kind of yells while she's sobbing, "I feel like you don't love me as much as I do. Like it's not mutual." And then Bear insists that he does love her and he begs her to come back to bed. She says, "Go back to sleep." So he rolls over and then she screams, "Why don't you love me?" And he jumps up, but she's not where she had been standing. And then she suddenly comes back in the room, but she's walking sideways and unnaturally. And she's holding a vase of flowers in front of her face. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And then she just sets the flowers down. And then she says, "For Sandy, okay?" And then she gets back in bed as if nothing had happened. And all of this, like the weird walking and the thing with the flower pot and the screaming and going back and forth between a little mousy kid voice and shrieking in agony, you're taken aback by it. At no point did I know what was going to happen next. And I also didn't understand what was happening in the moment. So it was very chilling.
It's super chilling and it's very unique. And Curry Barker said like he wanted this scene to be different. He didn't want it to be a traditional scare, and I think he executed well. It is certainly not a traditional scare at all. It's very well done.
Yeah, the flower pot in front of the face thing, I still think about that like constantly.
Yeah, so that flower pot, that wasn't even supposed to be in the scene originally. It was actually supposed to be Nikki cutting Bear with like a rose quartz or some kind of quote unquote love crystal, but it just wasn't working the way that they wanted it to. So they improvised and used those flowers instead. And also the weird way that Nikki, when she grabs those flowers and she like almost floats across the room, that's not indie. They hired a dancer to walk across the room like that to get that motion to be so smooth.
Oh yeah, because it looks like she's floating. That's good. So wait.
Yeah, because like her body stays really still and just like almost like Irish dancing, just like shoo, across the room.
Yeah. So hold on. Originally in the scene, she was gonna cut Bear, like cut his skin with a crystal.
Yeah, with a crystal. I think a rose quartz. Yeah, it was like a large crystal, and she was supposed to be kind of scraping it into his arm. There was no flowers at all in the original scene, but it just wasn't working for whatever reason, so they improvised the flowers.
Yeah, and I think it works because like somebody apparently losing their mind and trying to cut somebody with something, we've seen that in probably almost every single horror movie, right? But somebody holding their like a flower pot in front of their face and doing a weird walk in the room in the middle of the night after all the dialogue, like that's it's good.
Yeah, it's definitely unsettling. It's very good. Very good.
At a certain point, Bear wants to get out of the bed, so he like tries to sneak out of bed without waking her, but it doesn't work. And as Nikki is laying there facing him, and I think her eyes are still closed, she just opens her jaw and shrieks, "Stay!" at the top of her lungs. So he doesn't move, and he does stay in bed.
I thought I would relate to Nikki a lot more in this movie, and I didn't. I didn't relate to her very much because they did such a good job of taking it so far. But this moment, that stay, I don't know, something about it. I feel like I've had that frustration at night where I'm like, just stop moving, stay. Like, I felt it.
Yeah, I hate that when like right when you fall asleep and then somebody decides to be loud or move or whatever.
Yes.
No,
it's the worst. I know, it's the worst.
The next morning, Bear gets dressed for work and he notices that a chunk of his hair is missing. And he asks Nikki if she did that. And she's like, yeah, I did that. And then he says, okay, let's not do that. And she's like, okay.
Did you notice when he comes to confront Nikki in the scene, the book that she's reading, she's holding it upside down?
No, I saw it online later, but when I watched it the first time, I definitely didn't.
Yeah, so she's just pretending to human at this point.
And part of her pretending to human is packing his lunch. So she hands him a lunchbox and she's like, I packed this for you. And then he asks her about last night and she just says that she's really sorry. He says that she was being super terrifying. And then she says that she had a really bad dream. And then she goes, and then she stops. And then she goes, how's this? And then she does this really huge smile where her eyes are shut. Like that's how big she's smiling. Like her eyes are closing. It's a different kind of uncanny valley because it looks really fake. And then he says, that's not great. And then she starts to kiss him and he asks her to promise that she will stop doing weird stuff like watching him sleep and moving weird and the hair stuff and all that. She promises that she will, and she says she will miss him at work. And then he goes to leave and we see that the front door has been completely covered in like aluminum and duct tape as if Nikki was trying to seal them shut inside. And he just has no further questions and starts peeling it back to leave. She says if he's having trouble with the door, he should just stay home, but he leaves and she says goodbye. And she's standing in the middle of the room with that huge, disturbing smile on her face, and she looks totally frozen in place. Her face is so frozen that it looks like the screen has stopped, but you can still see her breathing. And then the camera pans down and we see her wet herself.
Yeah, and so the reason they gave her white socks in this scene too is that originally, I don't think it comes across this way in the final film, but that pee, it's supposed to look almost reddish to show how dehydrated she is at this point as well.
Oh God.
Yeah, so she's not eating, she's not drinking, she's not doing anything besides existing for Bear.
That's horrifying. Ugh. At the music store, Bear is sitting down and he has opened his lunchbox and found these Polaroid photos. And one of them is of him and it says you, and another is of both of them in like that selfie style. And in this selfie, Bear is sleeping and Nikki's face is doing that really insane smile. And the Sharpie written underneath says, not me.
Yes, which this is a very obvious, another one of Nikki's cries for help, another one of real Nikki's cries.
There's also a sandwich in this box, and there's a note taped on the lid of the little sandwich box, and it says, my little food critic. Sarah comes over, and they both talk, and he mentions how he knows that Nikki had quote-unquote friend-zoned him and told Sarah about it earlier. And I hate that phrase. Like, a woman not being romantically interested in a man is inherently a lack of action, and that is somehow twisted into something she does to him, and it's bad, and poor little manines. I hate it. Freaking crybabies.
Yes. Yeah. The friend zone term, I dislike it very much as well. You don't automatically have a right just because you're a quote nice guy, which is something we'll talk about at the end because obviously that's what Bear is. But it's also not true. Sarah, she's just jealous. And I actually think that she's one of the biggest villains in this movie. If you had any sympathy for Sarah, I think by the end of this, I will have changed your mind.
Ooh, challenge accepted, because I really like Sarah.
Oh, no. When I'm done, I don't think you will. But we'll get during the car scene. We'll get there.
Okay. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about my misgivings about that scene too, but I definitely didn't see her as a villain for 1 second, but I'm excited to have you try to convince me otherwise. So Sarah is like, okay, we literally talked about it once, but it was weird. And she says she doesn't want Bear to get hurt. And then while they're talking, her dad gives her another letter from an art school, and she opens it and it's another rejection. She sits down with Bear as he starts to eat his lunch, and she says that she has one last school that she's waiting to hear from. And then she kind of lays her head on Bear's shoulder, and he rests his head on top of hers. And he says that she can give him a tattoo whether or not she gets into art school. And she laughs, and then she says, "Your lunch smells weird." And then she picks up the note from the lunchbox and notices that on the back it said, "What's the verdict, cat?" And she's like, what does this mean? Bear had not seen the other side of the note, but he looks down at his sandwich and there's some really super weird gray meat inside the sandwich between the bread. So he freaks out and he starts puking into a trash can that's nearby. And while he's puking, he's just going, inside joke, inside joke. Like, she's escalating with the cat and he is just acting like it's a small issue that they will get through.
Yeah, Bear's the worst. He just continues to hide everything and just act like, oh, okay, I can still control this. I can still make this what I want it to be. And I don't know, he's just such a dick. I can't handle it.
And I'll also note, mediocre puke scene.
Oh, that's fair. You don't see any of it. I don't even think you really hear it. And he's talking through it. So really, he's just put his head in the bucket.
Yeah, it's more of it almost plays more like a comedy beat than, because he's like making puke noises and going inside joke while you're actively throwing up your smelly lunch.
Yes, you're right. Definitely one of our more lackluster puke scenes.
Later, Ian asks Bear for a ride home, and on the drive, Ian asks about all the weird stuff that's been going on with Nikki. He presses him about the lies and how weird everything is. Bear changes the subject and asks about the party that's happening later that night and why Ian didn't invite them. Ian says it looks like Nikki is going through something and that Bear is taking advantage of her. Bear gets super defensive and pissed off, and then Ian says, okay, fine, you can come, but you can't bring Nikki. It'll be a guy's night. And he says that if the relationship is healthy and not toxic and codependent, then it should be fine. And then Bear's like, yeah, I'm totally fine with this.
And I will say, well, I think in the beginning of this movie, Ian is a selfish asshole and just not a good guy. I do think that his character progresses a lot and he starts to get some genuine concern and worry about Nikki and her well-being, even more so than Bear does. But I think he evolves into being a better person than he starts out as until he's dead.
Yeah. I guess he ends on a slightly higher note, I suppose. Later that night, we see Bear sitting alone in his car, and he's practicing how he's going to tell Nikki that she can't cook a dead cat and that he's going to go to Ian's alone. He gets out of the car, and as he goes to get out of the car, the melody from the One Wish Willow plays from his backpack, so he triggered the device somehow. He pulls out the box and reads the package again, and this time he notices that there's a customer support phone number, and he calls it. The man who answers asks if he wants to cancel his wish, but Bear says no, he just wants to alter it. And the guy says, well, we don't really do that. Then Bear asks if Nikki's love for him is real. And the guy says, just because you chose this for her doesn't make it less real. So then Bear says, okay, I do want to cancel the wish. And the guy goes, you would like to file a cancel request? And Bear says, yes. But then the guy goes, well, we don't really do that. And Bear's like, you just made it sound like you did. So the guy's like, yeah, I was just guessing your intention. Bear then asks what he can do, and the guy says, nothing really until you die. So you've got a moral obligation to be there for her. Then Bear tells him about the freaking out and all the weirdness and asks what that is. And the guy doesn't answer directly, but just says, do you want to talk to her? And then you can hear Nikki shrieking and screaming over the phone. And Bear says, who is that? And the guy goes, Nikki, do you want to speak to her? And this is where I decided that Bear was the bad guy. He wasn't innocent before this by any means. That this definitely solidifies it.
Oh, without a doubt. The fact that he doesn't immediately say, yes, cancel the wish makes him an awful person. In fact, it's not even that he, maybe he's just confused about it. It's not even that. He knows at this point that the wish is a thing and it's affecting Nikki, and he just asked to alter it. So he still wants to keep Nikki's autonomy to himself, which is awful. Very vile. And fun fact, in this scene, the voice on the other end of the phone, that's the director, Curry Barker.
I actually, when I saw this in the theater, I suspected that might be the case. Like, if it wasn't the director, it's somebody who was important. Like, it's somebody behind the movie. I had not seen much of his work before this. Since Obsession came out, I've gone back and looked at some of his shorts and his like comedy sketches. Half of this scene reads like both one of his comedy sketches and something truly horrific. And it's so good. It's so effective.
It is, like, the way that the guy on the other end of the phone is speaking, like, he just doesn't care. Like, he's just like, hello? Yeah, what's up? Like, super bro. It is definitely like comedy short vibes, but then obviously such a dark moment in the movie where Bear maybe could have chosen to do something here and instead is like, oh, I just want to alter it. I just want to, yeah, just terrible. Yeah, it is well done. It's cool.
So I know horror is having a moment now, and we've seen several examples of comedians or people who started off doing comedy, specifically like YouTube shorts that are kind of comedy sketches, making these really incredible horror movies. So why do you think that is? Do you have a theory?
Oh, I wish I remembered this. I watched a short of a comedian saying why comics were good at this. And it has something to do with like knowing your audience and knowing when to drop the punchline and how to do a punchline, because that's the same as doing a jump scare or a scare, or executing a scare. Like, you know how to get your audience hooked into a story and then how to end that story. So you're just taking the comedy element and instead making it creepy. And I think there's some credence to that, because I mean, there's so many really great horror writers that started as comedy that are coming out now.
Yeah, I don't remember like all of them, but I think the guys who did Weapons were on the comedy beat first. And I think there's probably a million other examples that our listeners are probably screaming at us right now. But my personal theory is that people who are good at comedy, they know a couple of things. I think you're spot on about the punchline and the timing. I didn't think about that, but that's a really good point. But good comedians are empathetic. They have empathy and they know when to punch up and to never punch down. And I think to be effective in horror, you have to do that too. You have to know how to punch up. You have to know that you're not supposed to punch down. And you also have to be a student of the absurd, because comedy is about observing absurd things and talking about them. And horror is that way too, because these are absurd situations and absurd choices and absurd environments and absurd realities. And I mean, Jordan Peele, another fantastic example of doing exactly that. Very good at comedy, also very good at horror. And I think we've all seen examples of really bad comedians who are just, they're punching down the whole time, or they're just saying things to shock you. And I think that's why, in a similar vein, what I consider bad horror is just a gore fest, like a soulless gore fest, or a slasher that has no point. It's just trying to shock you. The people who are victimized in these horror movies are just fodder for the shock. And they're not, the story isn't saying anything more about like the human condition or the realities of certain lived experiences of certain groups of people. So I think that's what's going on there. I think a good comedian can also be a very good horror writer and director.
I think you make a really good point with the empathy thing, because to write good comedy, you have to take something that is mundane enough that most people in the world, they've experienced it, and then take that thing and make it funny. So you're taking a kind of normal experience and making it absurd, and they're doing that in the way of comedy. The horror is the same thing. You're taking this feeling that everyone feels, this moment that everybody has in their life, but instead of making it funny, you make it scary. And so the whole punching up thing, it's I think you're spot on with that. That's really good.
In comedy, you're inviting the audience to put themselves in other people's shoes in a way that's relatable. And I think if you feel that way when you're watching a horror movie, and it's a good horror movie, I think you get that too. It's that understanding of seeing things from other people's point of view, like, oh, this would be scary because, and I can understand that even if that isn't my personal lived experience or whatever. So yeah, I want more of it, because every example that I've seen has been fantastic.
Oh, I agree. I love this new comedy horror genre, deeper meaning horror, everything that's coming out. Obviously, we love it so much, we've made a whole podcast about it.
Yeah, and we try, I don't know, we're kind of funny in this podcast sometimes too.
Yes, and we relate it back to our real life experiences. So we're doing everything these directors are doing.
Yes, or they're doing what we're doing, actually.
Okay.
I know. Okay, I'll calm down.
When we make millions, I'll let you be that high up on your
Okay.
horse.
You're like, stay humble, bitch. So Bear doesn't deal with this revelation that Nikki is actually being tortured somewhere and screaming. Instead, he hangs up and he goes back inside his house. And when he turns the light on, he finds Nikki standing in the exact same position where he left her that morning. And she is covered in what looks like her own vomit and her own shit and her own piss. And then once he walks in, she goes, Bear! Like, and you watch her body kind of like sigh forward, like she's physically relieved that he's finally there. And then she goes to hug him, but he like keeps her at arm's length, and he's like, what the fuck happened? And she's like, what? And then she looks down at herself while Bear is like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And Nikki's like, oh, I'm disgusting. And then he's like, well, did you have a seizure or something? But she just says, I ate a bug, or I had a stomach bug or something. I was just waiting for you to come home. And then she's really apologetic and she says she will shower and she's going to clean everything up. And then she gets in the shower and Bear stands outside trying to talk to her through the bathroom door. He asks if she cooked the cat, and then he says she can't do that. Like, that's not something that she can do. And then he says he's really upset, but she just says, okay, honey, like nothing is wrong, while we hear the shower running. Then he says that Ian invited him to a boys' night, and she shuts the water off.
And I just want to make a point of saying that at no point in this scene does he ask if she's okay. And it's probably because he knows that she's not okay, but also he doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't want to hear the answer.
That, or he just straight up doesn't care. Yeah.
As he's standing outside trying to talk to her, he says that Ian invited him to a boys' night. And then we hear the water shut off very quickly, and she goes, okay. And then she says she can just go with him. Bear says that it's supposed to be a boys' night, so maybe he will just go alone. And the second those words are out of his mouth, we hear something smash in the bathroom, and then Nikki screams like a demon, and Bear just jumps away from the wall. And then Nikki says in a normal voice, yeah, that's so weird because Sarah's going. And Bear's like, really? And then Nikki's like, okay, fine, I'll stay home then. But Bear is panicking now, and he's like, well, no, if Sarah's going, you should come. But Nikki's like, no. And then Bear says, no, I think you should come. And then Nikki starts screaming and sobbing again. And she's like, no. If you wanted me to come, you would have told me to come. And she's in the middle of this like scream sob. And then it abruptly cuts to the next scene where they're both at Ian's party. And Ian is giving Bear shit for bringing Nikki. And he's like, well, Sarah was coming, so what was I supposed to do? Bear and Ian join a group at a table playing a drinking Jenga game. It's like that kind with the really large wooden bricks. One guy draws a brick that says he can switch places with someone, so he picks Bear so that he can sit next to Nikki. She gets really upset, and Bear is like, it's okay, baby. But she looks pitiful. Like, it's a really exaggerated frown, and she looks sad. And then someone jokes, what kind of spell did you put on her, bro? And then everyone laughs, but Nikki does that insane, overly laughing, not laugh, which I think we've probably all seen someone do this when it's like there's something uncomfortable or they're like sarcastically laughing, so they do it way too loud and long. So Nikki does this, and then everyone stares. Sarah tells Nikki that it's her turn. So Nikki draws a brick, and then she stands up and she reads something from her phone. And here it is. The air was charged by the distant call of the night bird. His face was obscured, but I knew he was looking at my chest, each side stretching, recently mature to different sizes. And then she puts on this weird accent, and she's like, Hansel, come lie with me, like the old woman taught us when we were children, I said. He closed the door and leaned against it. You're not my wife, Gretel, he said. I'm more than your wife, I'm your sister. Hansel flinched and reached for the door handle. I knew he would not leave this place. He would relent and choose to be inside me, like he had many nights before. If not, I would fillet his meaty forearm, roll it like a stick of licorice, and insert the flesh between my legs. Hansel is my soul. And here she looks at Bear, and she continues to say, a love only the branch of a willow tree could conjure. Brother, you will be inside me tonight. And that was terrifying.
Oh, it's such a wild moment. At no point did I understand it in the moment. I was like, what is happening? Why is she talking about Hansel and Gretel like banging and the meaty forearm and all of that? But as I reflected on it, it started to click for me because Sarah says that Nikki saw Bear as a little brother, but now she loves him more than anything in the world. And that love that she had for him, this like brotherly love that she had for him previously, is being twisted into whatever the hell that was.
And crucially, it's something that was forced on them because she talks about the old woman forcing them to do this as kids, which is...
There's a magical element to it.
Right. There's a magical element to it. And they're still very young because she's talking about her body recently changing in that story. And then she mentions that the old woman had taught them to do this. So there's child abuse and there's being forced to do this stuff. And then there's the twisted relationship that has come out of this. It's very short, but it's very dark and very disturbing. And I guess I was wrong and Nikki had been writing in the previous few weeks.
She did. She certainly wrote something. And the only thing she wrote was for Bear. But I do think too, though, that this is real Nikki was trying to get a message out. And she was doing it through Freaky Nikki by writing this quote unquote love story, I suppose, but intentionally making it twisted and leaning into that brother sister thing. So I think this is another cry for help from her to be like, hey, yeah, I love you, but look at how fucked up it is.
God, it's awful. And everyone else thinks so too. Because at this point, Bear is looking super disturbed and Nikki is smirking and everyone else looks either confused or horrified. Nikki then just sits down and shrugs and she's like, it's a new book I was working on. I don't have to drink. Because I think the Jenga brick that she drew was like, you have to tell a truth. So she read her book and that counted. I don't know. It's super quiet for a minute. So quiet, in fact, that you can hear a clock ticking. And then someone says, it's your turn, Joe, to one of the other guys. But Joe says it's actually Bear's turn since they switched spots. So Bear draws a brick and it says, kiss the person on your left, which just so happens to be Sarah. And we watch Bear and Sarah's faces as they look at Nikki, who stands up. It then cuts to her face, which has another one of these iconic and insane, really intense frowns on it. It's so intense it looks fake, but it isn't. She can just do that. Then she walks over to Sarah, grabs her chair, and moves it out of the way to kneel down next to Bear, and then she puckers up until he kisses her. She sighs, and she says really loud, like she's kind of starting to raise her voice. She's like, no one on this earth will ever comprehend what it feels like to love someone as much as I do. And then she stands up and she shouts, and everyone in this room will die never feeling the strength of connection I have felt with my Bear. And this is super intense and awkward. I think I would be terrified in this moment, but there's this really funny character who's in the crowd and like the group of people in the party. This one woman is sitting near them and she is just nodding like whatever, but her eyebrows are way up like, sure girl, go off queen.
I did not notice that woman. I'll have to go back and look at it. But you know what I got from Nikki doing this here? Have you heard of the like, I love you so much I want to shout it from the rooftops or whatever?
Oh yeah, sure.
I think it's just a play on that to be like, I just want to scream how much I love you to everyone I know. I think that's what's happening here and it's coming out crazy.
I felt like she was trying to traumatize everyone in the room.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Whatever's happening is traumatizing for sure, whether intentional or not.
Like, I feel like we've all known a couple who's gotten a little messy sometimes. But if this is happening, I'm like, I don't know, I'm calling somebody.
The fact that nobody acts here is nuts. Like something is so wrong. Like you have to get Nikki away from Bear. And the fact that nobody does is terrible.
Yeah, it is. And it's about to get worse because as everyone is really quiet and just staring, Ian actually goes in like this really soft, very concerned voice. He goes, Nikki, are you okay? And then Nikki looks around at everyone and she's like, I'm just kidding, guys. And then she starts to laugh, but nobody joins her. Like nobody laughs. So she says, okay, fine. I'm not joking. Deal with it. Then Ian is like, well, anybody want Jell-O shots? and walks away. Nikki goes to put her hand on Bear. Like she reaches over to put her hand on Bear, but then she snaps again. Her face suddenly changes from like lovingly staring at Bear to gasping in horror and shrieking and falling back. And she's screaming, "It's not me, it's not me." And then she grabs a glass bottle, smashes it on the table, jumps up, and then glasses herself in the face multiple times with the sharp edge of the bottle. And do you think it's not Nikki trying to subdue the real Nikki?
Oh, no. I thought it was the exact opposite. I thought it was real Nikki trying to either call for help or kill herself or hurt herself so drastically that someone besides Bear will see that something's wrong and try to help her. That's how I saw it. That real Nikki is the one that's stabbing herself in the eye. But I guess I could see that it's freaky Nikki or whatever doing it to subdue real Nikki. Interesting.
Yeah, like Nikki has started to scream for help and fake Nikki is attacking her to make her stop. That's one of the things that went through my head when I was watching this.
Oh, I like that. That's not how I interpreted it, but I like that. I think it's a good interpretation. I will say for this scene, there are some crazy theories onto why she stabs her eye and specifically her right eye, but I'll save that for the end. I'm curious what you think about it.
There's so much, like there's so many theories and like videos and takes and whatever on this. It's truly amazing. You could make entire movies off of some of these.
You could, and they might.
So while she's doing this, Nikki, whichever Nikki it is staring at Bear, who, by the way, hasn't even stood up from his chair. Everyone else is kind of backed up or they're screaming, and then someone yells, "Bear, she needs her help. Get her to the hospital." And then Nikki just kind of stops and she looks around and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then her mouth kind of drops open, like her jaw became unhinged somehow. And she just shakes her head in this truly otherworldly way. And Bear is just staring at the ground and like, what the fuck, Bear?
A Bear is such an avoidant. He is such a classic avoidant who just refuses to engage in any of this. And he's so selfish and he's awful. But everyone else at this party is awful too. Like, no way in hell, if I watch this happen, I am not letting Nikki leave with Bear. I'm driving her to the hospital. She has really shitty friends.
Yeah, I know. There's no girls here. Like, none of these girls are girls. They're just like, yeah, okay, he can take her to the hospital. Like, there's truly something horrible happening.
Remember that. Remember that when I tell you how much I hate Sarah. Remember what you just said.
Okay. You're gonna make me eat my own words?
I think so.
The next scene shows Bear driving and Nikki, who's bloody, is leaning on his shoulder, but it's a calm scene. Like, she seems relaxed and she doesn't seem in distress. He seems pretty distressed, but they're just driving. And then we see the car pull up in front of an ER. And Bear appears to be like in a fight with the medical staff. We see Nikki refuse to go with him, and the medical person seems to basically, you can't hear any dialogue, but it looks like he's basically saying, I can't do anything if she's refusing treatment. And then we watch Nikki get out of the car and dance just wildly as this conversation happens.
Yeah, this scene was a little frustrating for me, and maybe they left the dialogue out on purpose because they knew there were some intricacies here with it. But there is a law, and it's a good law. It's for bodily autonomy, and so people can't be locked away for no reason. And if someone refuses treatment, you can't force them to get treatment for whatever they're experiencing. But that law is null and void if the person is like a clear danger to themselves or others. So if they've harmed themselves or if they're going to harm others. And Nikki clearly just stabbed herself in the face with a bottle. So either Bear's not telling them that, or I guess Nikki could be saying that she didn't actually do it and therefore like they can't intervene. But it's just really frustrating to me that she doesn't get help there. I don't know. It just sucks.
Yeah, it does. And I could definitely see Bear not telling the whole story. And Nikki is probably denying it too. So all this guy sees is somebody who cut her eye, but it's not life threatening. And she appears to be just not interested in getting treatment, which that could be because there was drugs or whatever. I'm sure if you're an ER worker, you run into this scenario kind of all the time. But when she gets out of the car and starts dancing, I feel like I would have more questions. I don't know.
Well, even though she's out of the car dancing like the health worker, I'm sure they did have more questions. But I've been in a situation where someone when I was in the Air Force, someone who I was responsible for ended up having a psychotic break, and we took him to the hospital, and we tried to get him help, but they were like, hey, it's not illegal to be crazy. We can't keep him here. And in the same way, it's not illegal for Nikki to be crazy, so she can dance around all she wants as long as she's not hurting anyone. So, yeah.
Oh, I remember that, Airman, very well. Like, there should be a movie about that. I don't think we should go into detail other than to say that was quite the wild ride, and I can't believe you had to deal with that.
I think still potentially one of the most unique experiences I've ever had, that resulted in me not sleeping for 72 hours and crying in your car and in Jimmy John's parking lot.
Yeah, you were sobbing. It was so bad.
It was so bad. Oh, man.
I guess,
anyway,
I don't want to be too vague about it. I think what we can say is this person had a pretty severe mental health disorder, and he wasn't trying to self-harm or harm others, but he had a pretty significant condition that affected his perception of reality. So you worry that, okay, maybe you're not actively trying to hurt yourself, but anything could happen, and we want to make sure this person gets the care that they need. Meanwhile, you're running into all kinds of administrative barriers.
Yeah, it was wild, but it all worked out in the end. Just a stressful moment, and one of the many reasons I'm no longer in the Air Force. Yes.
Because we just knew we would be really good podcasters.
If only. I had no idea.
So after the visit to the ER that goes nowhere, Bear and Nikki are back at Bear's home, sitting at the table in his kitchen, and Nikki has a bunch of bloody rags in front of her. She gets up and she sits closer to Bear as he's just staring at the table. He stands up and he says that he's going to the bathroom, and then she wants to stand outside the door, and then finally he snaps at her and he's like, why did you do that? And then she said, I don't know. And then she says, Sarah's dirty. Bear says that she is scaring everyone and she's hurting herself, and then Nikki just keeps saying she's sorry, and then suddenly she says that she knows Sarah likes him. And then Bear just explodes. He's like, everything was normal. Everything was good. You were so... And then he stops because she's getting upset, and he apologizes and he says, look, you're so beautiful and you were normal. You are normal. But this isn't okay, Nikki. Do you like me? And then Nikki stands up and grabs his face, and she says that she loves him. But Bear says, no, 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 no. Do you like me at all? Is Nikki happy? Does Nikki like me? And then Nikki says, with this really creepy smile, and that glint is back in her eyes, she says, yeah, I'm your freaky Nikki. And Bear is like, nope, and then heads to the bathroom. And then Nikki gets really upset, and she asks him to tell her that he loves her. And he says that this is all he's ever wanted. And then she says that's the same for her. But Bear says that she needs to go home for one night so they can have some space apart. And immediately Nikki starts wailing like a child. And she's like, I don't want to. And then he says it's normal to take space. And she says she really doesn't want to. And she's like, just tell me what to do, while she's still wailing. He says, just be normal. And then she screams, I can be normal. And then Bear says, I just want you to be Nikki. And then she drops to her knees while she's sobbing. And she's like, I can be Nikki. I can. I'll be anything you want me to be, while she's still sobbing pitifully. Bear kneels down with her and says that she isn't being Nikki. And then she shrieks in his face and she's like, I can't be Nikki. And then she switches back to a calmer version of herself and starts apologizing. And then Bear says it's not real. And then he starts crying. And then Nikki says that she loves him in every reality. And then Bear says, I love you too. And then Nikki pops up and she starts doing that backwards pterodactyl walk, and she kind of looks like a really fucked up wind-up toy. And I think she also might be saying something in reverse. And this part of the movie, when I saw it in theaters, I went, oh fuck, out loud, and I got full body chills at this part.
It is really weird and unexpected, and it's already super tense because you're not sure what's going to happen next. And I do think she is walking and talking in reverse, but I don't know what she's saying, and I'm not sure why, but it is certainly creepy.
And then she stops moving once she's in a shadow in the room. And then Bear is screaming that she's terrifying him, and he's crying and backing away. And then Nikki's voice switches back to normal again, and she says that he doesn't need to be scared and that she will never hurt him. And then she jerks forward in that same pterodactyl walk, and then she stops very suddenly. And then Bear says she can stay here tonight, and then he'll go to Ian's and sleep there and then come back in the morning. And then she switches back to that super casual version of herself, and she's like, okay, it's nothing. And then she walks out of sight. But then we hear clattering from the kitchen, and then she comes back with a knife. And she says, if I have the bed all to myself tonight, I'll lay there warm until slowly I feel cold, like I walked into a freezer. My hands will feel like they're full of sand, like when you lay on them wrong, and that feeling will slowly spread across my entire body. You're still in my heart, but you're slipping. Any thought of pain or regret will slip away like a chemical switch, and even though it's quiet in the room, it somehow gets quieter. It's not painful. You just let go of everything you once were, and then there's nothing. It's not darkness. No, sweetie. Darkness is a color. There's just nothing. And then she kind of shifts back to her normal voice and shrugs and says, or you could stay. And then she walks away, and Bear says, yeah, so he's gonna stay. And then that scene ends.
I think that scene's so brilliant because at first you're not sure what she's doing or what's going to happen, but it's just obviously she's manipulating him in this moment to stay, right? And she's using the traditional manipulation tactic of threatening to kill herself, but she's doing it in the most unique and creepy way anyone could ever possibly think of saying it. Like, she's not just like, fine, if you leave, I'll kill myself. Like, it's that. I guess it's maybe the writer in her coming through, but it's crazy and it's chilling.
Yeah, it's really scary. And I do know what you mean. Like, I've never personally experienced this, but I have known, like, when I talk about like, oh, everybody's seen that really messy couple, like, I've known couples who that's a thing. Like, one of them will say, if you do this or if you don't do this, I'm going to kill myself. Like, that is a thing that partners sometimes threaten at each other when they're in very unhealthy relationships. And it is very dark. And again, where are her friends here?
I know. Nobody cares about her at all. But yes, I think it's taking something that often happens in very toxic relationships and amplifying it. And it's exploring that and making it artistic, disturbing, terrifying. I don't know. Crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think the intensity of this movie and the themes that it deals with and the competency or the skill with which it was executed is definitely a reason why it is resonating with so many people and why it has gained so much attention. Later, they're both lying in bed, so Bear has stayed. And Nikki seems like she's asleep. Bear is staring at the ceiling, and then Sarah texts him, and she says that she wants to meet him to tell him a couple of really important things. But it's like 2:45 in the morning. And Bear says no at first, but then Sarah says she'll just come over if he doesn't meet her at the park. So he slowly starts to slide out of bed while trying not to wake up Nikki. And as he's creeping out, we hear Nikki say, Bear, kill me, please. And Bear says, what? And then he looks back at her, and it looks like she's asleep, but her mouth is moving. And she says, she's sleeping. It's me. Please don't wake her. Just kill me. And then Bear says probably one of the most evil things in the entire movie. And he goes, what's so bad about being with me? But Nikki says, I've never been with you, Bear. Just kill me, please. And then Bear leaves while Nikki is crying, please, please, please.
Yes, and you already said it, but this moment is so evil. Of all the things Bear could say in this moment, the fact that he is thinking about no one but himself and just says, what's so bad about being with me? When real Nikki hasn't even had a chance to say anything about the way she feels or felt or might feel. Like, what an evil, sick person. It's just so selfish and out of touch. It's wild.
Yeah, he's taking her suffering and making it about himself, which is, I think it's incel behavior, and I think it's disgusting, and I think he's a menin.
Perhaps the biggest menin we've dealt with, and maybe the biggest menin we'll ever deal with.
So Bear sneaks out and he joins Sarah in her car, and she's smoking a cigarette and asks about Nikki. Bear says that she hasn't told many people, but her dad is dying. And Sarah's like, I thought she hated her dad. But Bear says she doesn't, and they're close now. I do think it's a little odd how like both Ian and Sarah are like, yeah, but she hates her dad. Why does she care? Because like even if you've had a strained relationship or no relationship or bad relationship, I don't think it's unusual for people to go through a lot when they're encountering losing somebody like that in their life, because even if the only thing you are grieving is you are grieving the relationship you wish you had with that person, and their actual death doesn't change that, like I just thought it was a little odd that they're like, well, something's going on with her because she doesn't like her dad, dad, so she shouldn't care that he's dying.
Yeah, I agree. That's certainly weird. And maybe that's why they write it off so quickly when Bear's like, well, they're close now, or it's still bothering her or whatever. They're just like, no, okay, I could see that. But I will agree. Just because you hate your dad or you're estranged from your dad, you could almost argue that that situation has the potential to be more damaging for someone than, like someone with a healthy relationship with their parent dying, because maybe in the back of their head, that person always thought, oh, maybe we'll have that relationship better. There's always a chance. Maybe I'll be able to tell him this, or this. And then that goes away forever. Like, that's still impactful. That's still difficult to deal with regardless.
Yeah, or if that person, if her dad was truly awful and now he's like guilt tripping her constantly, or her family is guilt tripping her. And I know this isn't really happening. Like, Nikki's dad isn't sick and none of this is actually influencing what's happening. But I just think it's bizarre that her friends reacted that way.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. It is definitely bizarre.
And it kind of feeds into your point that nobody really cares about her.
Not a damn person. It's so frustrating. And you're about to see it more in the next 3 lines that Sarah says.
So Sarah then says she really hopes that Nikki figures it out because she seems really fucked up. And then she says that she thinks it's messed up that Nikki is leaning so hard on Bear in all this because Sarah thinks Nikki is taking advantage of him. Sarah then pulls out the letter from art school and she says that she thought maybe they could open that up together. And then she says she wants to tell him some things. And she says that Ian and Nikki have been hooking up off and on for 2 years, and that Ian thinks Nikki is dating Bear to get back at him. And then she also says, I think you need to date someone more chill. And then Bear's like you? And then she laughs and says, well, I was to your left, kind of referring back to when he was supposed to kiss her because of the Jenga game from earlier.
Yes. Okay. So here it is. So Sarah and Nikki have a history of being good friends. And Sarah has just spent the last couple weeks watching Nikki act out irrationally, completely distance herself from both Ian and Sarah, become infatuated with this person that she thinks she never liked in the first place, and then watches her literally go insane at the party to the point where she is stabbing herself in the face with a broken bottle. And her concern is that Bear is being taken advantage of. And that makes me so angry that she sees her friend, at the very least, her friend is having a complete and absolute mental breakdown. And she is saying, well, she just needs to get help and you should be with me instead. She is the same as Bear. She is just saying, screw that person. I like you. I want you to be with me. Leave her in her crazy mental state. There's professionals that should be helping her. You don't have to deal with it. Her emotions are not your responsibility. She's using you. Come be with me instead. And how can you not see that and think that Sarah's the worst person in the whole fucking world?
Well, yeah, when you put it like that, this is 100% pick me behavior. And the fact that she's like, well, you're being taken advantage of, poor Bear, when she's watched everything, all the changes in Nikki and whatever's happening with her dad that may or may not be legit, and the self-harm, that is pretty evil.
It's pretty evil. The only person in this entire movie, in this whole movie, that takes even a second to ask Nikki if she's okay is Ian. And he does it a couple times. That's the only reason why I say Ian grows into being one of the better characters, because at some point he is concerned about Nikki's well-being. Nobody else gives a shit. Nobody else. And it's awful. It's so awful that this person is being dragged through this and nobody cares. Nobody cares. Ugh, I hate it.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if Sarah listens to those same bro podcasts.
Yeah, honestly, Sarah and Bear were meant for each other. And had they organically actually gotten together, they would have become toxic and awful because they're both toxic, awful people.
But they are never going to get that chance, because right when Sarah is explaining that Bear was supposed to kiss her, boom, Nikki has flown into the scene. She smashes Sarah's car window with her own skull, and then Nikki puts a brick on the steering wheel and she grabs the back of Sarah's head and starts repeatedly and violently slamming her face into the brick. And it's just an insanely violent and intense and gory and loud attack. It's absolutely shocking.
It is. I knew that this was coming, and I still I kept pausing it and be like, oh my god, is it here? Is it I was so anticipatory about this. I couldn't even look at it the first time. The second time I watched it, I looked at it the whole way through, and thank goodness you can kind of tell that Sarah is a doll or some kind of prop, because her back is very flat and her body's like kind of thin. So, you know, it's not real Sarah getting her face smashed in, but man, it is unsettling and scary for sure.
Yeah, this scene scared the crap out of me in the theater. I knew something was coming, but I didn't think it was this. It was super gory, and when I watched it in theater, I half hid like the screen with my hand. But since then, I've put on my big girl panties and watched it. And the one thing I noticed was that brick that she's holding, that Nikki's holding, you can tell it's rubber. Like if you watch carefully, like it's better to watch the brick than the face full of gore because you can tell the way it's bouncing, like it's a rubber prop. And I'm like, oh, okay, I can deal with this now.
Yeah, I think the reason I noticed that her back was like flat was because I wasn't looking at the brick or the face. I was like, oh, look at the back of her head because I couldn't get my eyes to look over at the front of what was happening.
Yeah. So Nikki turns Sarah's face into a pile of gore, and when she finally stops, half of her head is caved in or missing entirely, and there's blood and brains everywhere, and Bear has been looking away while this is happening. I think the other thing about this scene that's made me able to deal with it a little bit better on my like second and third watch is I've seen clips of them like the actors practicing this scene, and they're adorable. Like all of them are so cute, and they're laughing and making jokes the whole time and making fun of themselves, and that helped me deal with this scene a little bit better.
It is cute. Have you seen the clip where, so for Nikki she actually kind of does put her head through, I don't think it's a real window, but through something. So what they do is they put a helmet under this fake wig, but luckily the scene happens so quickly that you can't even tell. But when she's just standing there with the helmet wig on, she looks so silly. Yeah. And she like jokes around with it and like comes up and down from the window and makes like funny faces and stuff. It's cute.
Yeah. If you're like us and you don't really like gore that much, this might be a way to help you. If you're interested in watching that scene, like watching this first can probably make that a little bit better. After violently murdering Sarah, Nikki says, "I'm so sorry you had to see that, baby, but it is kind of your fault. Just remember you wanted this. I'm so happy you did." And then she goes over to his side of the car and opens the door and like holds them and says that they need each other and that he's going to have to help her get rid of the body. And then we get a really gross close-up of the pile of broken flesh that used to be Sarah's face.
Yeah, and they actually had to edit this clip down a lot because it was going to be NC-17 rated if they kept it in. But the whole murder scene, it was supposed to be much longer, and when we see Sarah's body just laying there after, the actress who played her, she actually recorded herself making gurgling noises that they were going to use here. So technically in this moment she was supposed to still be alive for a short period of time, but in complete agony, and that's what they edited out.
God, yeah, that would make this a bajillion times worse, and I see why that would get into the NC-17 line. Ugh.
Yeah, no, we didn't need any gurgling noises there. It was nice that it had a little bit of fakeness to it. I appreciated that.
Yeah. So then later we see Bear and Nikki put Sarah's body into like a giant tuba case or something, and then they put that in the back of a car. We also see Bear inside the music store, and he's sitting in the break room, and he looks totally stunned. And we hear Nikki doing something in the other room, and then she comes back in and she says, "She's ready, baby. Why don't you go home and I'll take it from here?" Bear later pulls up to his house and he still has the bloodstained art school letter. So he opens it and reads it, and Sarah got accepted, which is super sad. So he sits there for a second and then he starts screaming and crying. It's now morning and we see Bear barge into that witchy store from earlier. And he is still covered in blood and wearing the same clothes that he had on when Sarah was murdered. He's looking around the store and he can't find the One Wish Willows, so he asks the cashier, who is just staring at him like, what the hell? And then the guy goes, "First of all, don't come in here with this. This is too early. And second of all, they're right here." And Bear's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And the cashier says that the box is full of warnings and he shouldn't come in here with this bad energy. And that's when Bear catches a glimpse of himself in the mirror on a counter. And this is, if you go back to that first scene where he's buying the first One Wish Willow, he's looking in that same mirror. And the difference between that shot and this shot is huge. And he seems to recognize that.
Well, I think this scene also gives some credence to the mirror theory as well that happens in this movie. Because when he is there the first time, the mirror's present, but he's not really looking at it. He's not paying attention to it. But this time he actually looks at it, and he looks at himself, and he breaks in this moment because I think for the first time in this whole movie, he's finally seeing himself for what he's become and how selfish he's been and how he's only cared about himself. This is the first time he even tries to apologize for what's happened. So in the same way where sometimes when Nikki looks in the mirror, she sees her real self, I think this moment made Bear see what an evil asshole he's turned into, at least a little bit.
Yeah, and he's ruined Nikki's life and he's ended Sarah's life, and it's all his fault. And he's like standing there literally covered in the blood of one of his friends, and he did all of this. Like, he set all of this off.
Yes, but it's the first time he's accepting that fact at all. Because before this, it's poor me, I'm the victim, you should have just wanted to be with me. And finally, he's like, oh shit, I did this.
Yeah, and he can't deal with that recognition. Bear starts yelling at the cashier, and he's like, no one would buy this if they knew. And then he starts sobbing, and the guy behind the counter is just like, oh God, what did you do? And Bear says, she's obsessed with me. And then he sobs harder. And then he asks the cashier if he can make a wish to reverse it. But the cashier's already used his one wish, so he can't do it. But he does suggest that Bear get somebody else to make a wish. So it could be the woman that he's talking about could make the wish that undoes it. And he also suggests he could just kill himself. Back in this car, Bear wishes that Nikki only loved him as a friend, but he can't break the one wish willow. It just won't work. So he goes over to Ian's place, and Ian is completely freaked out by Bear's appearance. He says that Sarah has been texting him over and over and just saying some really weird stuff, and that she really wants him to go over to Bear's house. Bear's like, absolutely, do not come over right now. And then Bear finally tells Ian about the wish, and he shows him the one wish willow. And he's like, you have to make a wish, but Ian doesn't believe him. And Ian seems to think that Nikki is hypnotized or something. Bear asks him to make a wish to undo everything. And then Ian goes, fine, I wish for $1 billion. And then cash rains down on him immediately, while Bear screams, no! And the look of horror on Bear's face is just, it's very good. It's very convincing. So since this didn't work, Bear goes back to his house, and he finds, I don't know what this is. It's like on the table in the middle of the living room, right? And it looks like a shrine to their relationship or something. Is that what we're supposed to think? Like, it looks like the backseat of my car after a road trip. Like, there's literal garbage on this table.
Yes, we have to talk about this shrine because I really looked at it, and it's amazing. The details in it are incredible. So it is literally mostly trash, which makes sense, actually, because if you think about it, the first shrine that Nikki made Bear was his cat, who she found in the trash. So I do think like part of this is her skewed perception of, wait, you love this cat and you put it in the trash. So you put everything you love in the trash. So let me make this shrine of trash to you. But yeah, it's like empty soda cans and coffee cups, dead flowers, old tubes of toothpaste and stuff like that. But there are some interesting and some funny things throughout it. So in the middle of it, there is a ring box, but it's a kind of ring box that it's like from a jewelry box drawer. So multiple rings are supposed to be put in it, but there's just one diamond ring in it. And then also to the right of the shrine is a pair of handcuffs, which I don't think that needs much explanation. And then on the left side of the shrine is a bottle of Jergens lotion, which previously sat right next to Bear's computer. And then under that bottle of lotion is an old sock. So it's his jerking sock.
Oh no. I do remember seeing that bottle of lotion in the by his computer, and I had the same thought. Oh my God,
it's his, yes. So she grabbed his jerking lotion and sock and put it in the shrine. And then there is one detail that you really can't see in the shot. You can kind of see it later, but the production designer actually posted a picture of it, and it is on this shrine. There is this quote, the absolutely not haunted doll that they procured on set, and they dubbed it Baby Curry, and they dressed it as Bear. And they put that doll on the shrine, and they gave it the name tag that says Baron on it. It's so funny. I'll post a picture of it, or I'll tag the production designer in our post so you guys can go look at it, but it's so funny.
That's wild. It is. I'm looking at it right now, and it's unhinged.
It is. But all that to say, I love this shrine, and it is, I believe, Nikki's messed up way of presenting him something that she thinks he should love and is beautiful, but really just shows how twisted her love actually is.
Oh, wait, does this post say actual hair from members of the crew?
Oh my gosh, it does. Yeah. They all cut off a chunk of their hair and put it in the shrine. Yes.
What if they summoned something by accident?
Maybe.
Their
Well,
one
apparently
wish.
they summoned a couple $1 million.
Yeah, they did. So it worked. I am going to do this tonight. Honey,
There you go.
I need some hair. Oh my God. So as Bear is looking at this shrine, we see Nikki in the background and she's looking scary, like super scary. Bear pulls out the One Wish Willow and he calls out for Nikki and he's like, Nikki, you'll do everything for me, right? And that's when he notices Sarah's mostly naked body taped to a chair in the other room and her head is just goo. And then Nikki says, I'll do everything for you, baby. And Bear turns around and he sees that Nikki has dressed herself in Sarah's clothes. And she's also smoking and she's sobbing. And she's like, do you like me better now? She has drawn Sharpie tattoos on her body to resemble Sarah's tattoos. And then she's like, why can't you love me? But her voice is like super distorted and it sounds otherworldly. And then she hits herself in the head with a gun that she has in one hand. And then everything just blasts to 11. Bear is screaming. Nikki is sobbing. And she goes, I just want to eat you up. And then Ian is suddenly pounding on the front door. Bear backs up and he falls on the couch. And then Nikki, whose face is bloody and awful, puts the gun to her chin and screams that she will kill herself. Right then, Ian bursts in and he's talking about getting the $1 billion and it's all real. But Nikki just immediately blasts him in the face, like shoots him dead instantly. And then she turns back to Bear and then she says, I'll rip my eyes out of my fucking skull and shove the barrel in my pussy, Bear. And then she projectile vomits in his face. And as the podcast's accidental puke judge, this one also is pretty mediocre and doesn't really rank high on my vomit scorecard. It's just kind of like watery applesauce and you don't see it come out of her, but the splash was good.
I wonder if this will change your mind at all, but similar to the fact that when she peed earlier, it was like bloody and red and super dehydrated. The reason it's watery is because it's just straight stomach acid because she hasn't eaten in days. So I don't know.
Oh no.
Take that with what you will. Yeah.
Oh no. How's Bear not noticed that she hasn't eaten?
Bear is letting this woman live in his house with a open wound on her face. Bear does not give a fuck.
Yikes. What a piece of shit. So then, freshly covered in Nikki's stomach acid vomit, Bear says, I love you. And then she screams, scream it. So he screams at her that he loves her. Then she changes her tone and snuggles up next to him. And she says, you owe me that. He says he's going to make it work. Like he's going to fix it and everything's going to be fine. And then she starts sobbing and she's saying that she's really sorry and that she's going to be pretty again. And Bear says that she's the most beautiful girl in the world, but that they should freshen up. He stands up and she says kind of coyly, she's like, I know what you want. And then we cut to Bear in the bathroom locking Nikki out while she pounds on the door and screams, fuck you. He has the gun now and Nikki suddenly stops banging on the door and just goes, okay. And then she says, I was thinking maybe we should break up. Bear puts the gun to his chest and then he puts it in his mouth, but he can't pull the trigger. He opens the medicine cabinet and he takes the bottle of the cat killing pills. And meanwhile, Nikki is saying that they can take the space if they need it. And while she's doing this, Bear just starts swallowing all the pills. But he apparently changes his mind and tries to make himself throw up. But then we hear the One Wish Willow being snapped.
One fun thing about this scene is originally Bear was not supposed to try to throw up the pills. He was actually just supposed to kill himself, but the actor who played Bear said that that's not who Bear is, that Bear's really wishy-washy and a coward, so there's no way he would redeem himself enough to actually go through with killing himself. So he came up with the idea of making it look like Bear was going to puke them up, and then they rolled with it. That's the shot that they went with.
It was really good. Like, I think he's correct because it does make sense for what what is revealed about his character. So I think it was a great decision.
Me too, because had he just swallowed the pills there, you might have almost felt bad for Bear and been like, okay, yeah, clearly he's killing himself to save Nikki, but he couldn't even do that.
Right. So once we hear that other One Wish Willow being snapped, Bear stops trying to throw up and he goes out into the living room where Nikki is waiting for him and they smile at each other. And now Bear has that same glint in his eyes like Nikki did. They kiss, and then as they're kissing, Bear collapses while the camera zooms in on the broken One Wish Willow. Bear starts foaming at the mouth while Nikki sobs and holds him, and then she puts the gun to her head, and then she snaps out of it like a light switch because Bear is dead. And then she pulls back from him and she starts sobbing as the camera pans over to the TV that's in the living room that starts to roll credits. End of incredibly intense and amazing and chilling and awful and wonderful movie.
Yes, and before we end with the plot, a couple fun things about this ending scene again. If you listen very carefully to right when Nikki's about to pull the trigger of the gun, you can hear this weird distorted voice say, "Wake up," right before she takes the gun out of her mouth.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a influencer on Instagram who said he watched this movie with headphones in and he heard it and he kind of isolates it. And Curry Barker liked it. So I take that as it's legit. I'll post a link to it in our show notes for anyone who wants to like hear it. And then the other thing is the original ending of the movie, Nikki, she was supposed to shoot herself. It wasn't because she was sad that Bear died. Like she snaps out of it and then was supposed to kill herself after because she just couldn't handle like the intensity of everything that had just happened. But they changed it at the last minute because they felt like Nikki was a true final girl and she wouldn't do that. And they also felt that it was more impactful for the audience to sit there with her in this moment and just like take it all in. So they did change it so that Nikki lives.
That wake up thing is really chilling and I love it. And I did know that about the original ending was going to be different. I also read somewhere that they did it like this was the only take of that version that they did.
Oh, it's definitely possible. I'd have to find that's the only take they did where Nikki didn't kill herself. Yeah.
Okay, Charlie. After all of that, we dug into the plot. Now it's time to dig deeper. What did you unearth for us in this One Wish Willow-driven nightmare?
Yeah. Okay. So before we get into the really dark shit, I want to talk about more of the like overall design and inspiration of the One Wish Willow and how this movie came to be. And then we'll talk about all the dark stuff. So Curry Barker, he had the idea for a movie where there was a love that turns into an obsession and a toxic relationship. He's had that idea for a long time, but he wasn't sure how to execute it. And he ended up sitting down and watching an episode of The Simpsons, which had the monkey paw in it. And have you heard of the monkey paw before?
Yes, and I think that's from one of the Treehouse of Horror versions of The Simpsons. It's like their Halloween special that they do. And I know that the monkey's paw is a thing in stories, but I don't know where it comes from. Like I don't know if I've ever read the original, like wherever that came from.
Yes, it's a short story by the English author W.W. Jacobs. And it's a story, he published it in the newspaper. I forget what year it was, but it was a long time ago. And it's a story of a woman who comes into possession of a monkey's paw. And she's told that that monkey paw will grant 3 wishes. But she's warned not to use it because it comes with severe consequences for tampering with fate. She doesn't listen, so she makes a wish anyway. And she wishes for $200 to make their mortgage payment. That night, she's notified that her son died at an accident at work and the company is going to pay them $200 as like some kind of settlement for the accident. She then uses a second wish to wish for her son to come back to life. And that's when it kind of turns into the horror because the son's body is mutilated and decaying and he's been dead for a week at this point. And he comes back and he's banging on the door and fearing that the thing at the door is no longer their son. The father uses the last wish to get rid of him completely. And that is the story of the monkey's paw.
Oh, that's awful.
Yes. So The Simpsons did a retelling of that story and aired the episode, and Curry Barker watched it and it clicked for him in the moment that the way this toxic couple becomes obsessed with each other is through a wish. So that's how the idea of the wish came about to be. So let's talk about the willow itself. The willow stick is inspired from dried, hollowed out cactus branches. So it's supposed to be like a hollowed out cactus. So the production designer, Vivian Gray, says that she has trypophobia, which is the fear of things with holes in it. And so she kind of based the One Wish Willow off of that. And it's not a willow at all. They actually thought making it something dead and that isn't a willow actually adds to the nefariousness of the toy.
I also have trypophobia, and I remember how I got it. Do you want to hear it? It's really gross. I might throw up.
I do. I already feel my like throat and stomach being unsettled, but I have to know. I have to know.
I was able to go back and watch the scene with Sarah getting a brick to the face, so maybe this exposure therapy will help me. When I was a little kid, I saw this nature documentary, and I'm not going to look this up because I just can't, but I remember seeing a type of frog that the way it breeds, its young actually lives in its back. And so the nature documentary was showing images of this, like the larval stage or like the juvenile version of whatever this is emerging from holes in the back of this thing. And it creeped me out so much. I'm hugging myself and cringing right now because even talking about this is making me uncomfortable. I hate it so much, and I 100% get unsettled anytime I see a bunch of tiny holes in it like that. And I think there is like a biological reason a lot of people feel this, and it's that if you see something like that, it is often a sign of some type of illness or infection or like disease. So it is a natural reaction to be grossed out and freak out when you encounter things with a bunch of tiny holes in it like that. But I saw that when I was a kid and it grossed me out, and I've never been able to get over it.
I don't know what frog it is, but I've seen the same video.
I hate it
and
so
it's
much.
terrifying.
I hate it so
Oh,
much.
it's so gross.
Nobody use this against me. I'm very sensitive.
No, I understand it too. There are certainly things that I can't look at or that unsettle me, like the larva of bees hatching from a bee's nest. Or have you seen those spiders that carry all their young on their back, like as little eggs?
Yeah, that's
and like
gross.
people step on them and the eggs just go But anyway, yes. So you can see where the natural horror for the willow came from.
I'm about to judge my own vomit.
Please don't. Oh, man.
But no, I do see how that absolutely works, how trypophobia could inspire the look of this thing, because it does look super unnatural. I've never seen any type of a willow branch or anything like that looks anything similar to that. So it definitely works. Like, it's effective.
Yeah, it definitely is. So we'll step away from the grossness. I do want to talk about the box. One of the things that's on the box actually is that phone number that you call. I called that phone number today.
And you talked to Curry Barker himself.
Oh my God, I would have died. No, it's a discontinued line. So the phone number has been shut off. So if you see videos of people saying that they called that number and like talk to somebody, it's a lie. It's a scam. That number goes to a dead end.
I wonder if it was good for like a couple days.
Maybe it could have been. It could have been, but now it is dead. It's no longer there. So it was either something pre-recorded or whatever. It's gone now. But what isn't gone and what is actually still there, since you said maybe it was there for a couple days, let me show you something. I want you to click. We're going to try something new here.
Ooh.
I want you to click this link that I just posted in our notes. Do you see it?
Okay, I'm here.
Okay, so there is, well, the phone number isn't real. There is a One Wish Willow website, and it is like a legit website in the fact that this is made by the same people who made the movie Obsession. And it's cute. It's fun. I love it. It does say all the One Wish Willows are sold out, but it has a little 40-second like trailer for the One Wish Willow, which, do you want to pause to watch it for a sec?
Yeah, it's playing. I don't have the sound on, but I can see, you see like somebody getting lots of money and somebody getting a car and then somebody breaking the wish, and then she gets like just this horrified look on her face.
Yes, exactly. And it's got like a little jingle to it and everything. You can go in and watch it. And it does connect to a YouTube channel, but the only video on that YouTube channel is this one trailer.
So I have actually seen this because this played in the Alamo Draft House when I saw Obsession. Like, this was playing in the beginning. You've been to an Alamo Draft House, right? They always play like...
I love Alamo
Yeah.
Draft House. Yeah.
I'm totally spoiled. It's the only way I watch movies if I can get away with it, which is probably why we don't go see movies in the theater all that much, because it'll bankrupt us. But yeah, if you've never been to one, they play these like semi-related, like thematic short videos before the movie. So it's before, if you get in before even the trailers start, they'll play these videos, and it's kind of fun. Like, I remember when I went and saw Hokum, they were playing these really weird black and white, like super old videos, and it was about a guy in like a mechanical hotel, and the hotel was messing with him. So I was like, okay, so how are we going to learn that this is relevant to the movie? And you do see kind of elements of that with the spooky hotel in Hokum, haunted by the Kaliak. But yeah, they played this in the beginning before the movie started.
I love that. I miss that. There's no Alamo Draft House where I live now. And I love that they do those like old timey ads beforehand to give you like little sneak peeks or ideas of what the movie's going to be about. It's the best. But back to the website. So if you scroll down in this website, there is shop related merch. And if you visit that site, it takes you to the official Obsession merch page. So if anyone wants Obsession merch, go there. And then you scroll farther down, it has all of the how to use the One Wish Willow. And then they must have mailed these out to various influencers or maybe people who ordered the like movie release, the special movie release pack when it came out. And there's videos of people that use the One Wish Willow. There's all kinds of them. And some of them act out their wish. Some of them just talk about how creepy the willow is. But there's all kinds of like testimony videos of people with the One Wish Willow. And then there's FAQs on the bottom. And it's fun. Like you should go check it out if you like this movie and you're interested and you haven't seen this. It's a cool website. What's different about this website and some of the fake websites we've talked about in the past is that at the very bottom, it says the One Wish Willow is 100% magical and 0% real for entertainment only. No actual wishes granted. So
I did look on the website with the merchandise, and I have to tell you, I'm a little disappointed that they didn't make a sweater that says I want to skin you and wear you like a sweater.
Oh,
like,
I want to wear your skin as a sweater.
Yeah,
they
they totally should have.
We should write him. I bet
Curry.
they'll make it.
Curry, baby, call me.
Wait, I'm gonna make a short of us, and I'm gonna tag it because he's on Instagram. Maybe we'll see.
It's fine.
Just I don't have to. Anyway,
we're very chill and cool, Curry. I promise.
Promise. Oh man. Anyway, okay, so there is a One Wish Willow website and it is pretty cool and it's got all the rules and everything if you want to go read them without, flipping the box design upside down and reading it that way. It does exist. Another little fun fact before we get into more box design. Did you know that there are actually 2 jingles for the One Wish Willow in this movie?
Like the thing that plays when you open the box?
Yes. There's 2 versions of that.
Ooh, no, I did not catch that.
Do you want to listen to the 2? You don't have to. We can cut it out, but you should listen to the 2 versions.
Okay, so the first one it's playing, it says, this is what plays when the user has not yet made a wish. Do, 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 do. Okay. And the second one, the user has already made a wish. It sounds like it might be the same notes, but in a different key. It's a minor key.
Yeah, it's similar notes, but in a different key, and it's a shorter jingle too. And according to Curry Barker, it's supposed to almost sound like it's going no, no, no. Like,
oh, okay.
It's telling you you've already wished. So it plays multiple times throughout the movie. So the first time that Bear opens it and the first time that Ian opens it, it's a good jingle, but then the second time that Bear opens it, it's the bad jingle saying, no, you can't make another wish.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's like coy. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are 2 jingles. I don't know anything about the jingles besides that, like how they were designed or anything like that. But I just think it's a fun fact that not a lot of people picked up. And I only picked it up because I saw it in a Curry Barker interview. I'm not that cool, but it is fun. Another like fun little fact about what's on this box is in the bottom corner of it, there is a little cat symbol. And the company that makes the One Wish Willow is called Tabby Cat Curiosities. And obviously this movie has a lot to do with cats and there are tabby cats out there. However, it's spelled TABI and it's actually an acronym and it's a nod to Curry Barker's YouTube channel, That's a Bad Idea. That's the name of his YouTube channel.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So the reason that there's so many cool things hidden on this box is that this box was actually designed by Curry Barker and his mom. His mom's a graphic designer and something they like to do together. I guess Curry Barker's like a logo nerd. So he in his free time makes logos on his phone and then sends them to his mom and she like tweaks them and makes them better. And it's just something that they do together.
That's adorable.
Isn't it so cute? So they made this whole box together and he said that there's a lot of like lore behind why they made the box the way they did and the different shapes, the big square, the little square, the triangle that they went through. And he said maybe one day he'll release exactly what that full story is, but he does not have that full story now. So let's talk about some of the more like intricate details on the box. So obviously the one side of the box just says One Wish Willow, amaze your friends, you only get one wish. And it just has two people cracking a One Wish Willow stick. And then on the other side, it says spark the middle and break in half. And we already talked about what I think the spark is. And then usage. Open the package to a magical jingle and a fun pop surprise. Hold the One Wish Willow, gently break it in half, and state your wish clearly. Wait up to 24 hours for your wish to come true. Disposal. After granting your wish, the One Wish Willow loses its magical properties. And then this is the same panel that has the Tabby Cat Curiosities. It has a website too. I tried to go to the Tabby Cat Curiosity website. It doesn't work. At least it didn't work for me. And then it has the phone number to call if you need help. And then the warning on it, the one that the man at the store says, the box is covered in warnings, dude. It says, manufacturer, Tabby Cat Curiosities, single use only, grants one wish. Once made, it cannot be undone or repeated. No multiple attempts. Using additional One Wish Willows will not change or affect your other wishes. Only one wish per life per person. Consider long-term effects. Wishes are irreversible. Think carefully before wishing. Cannot grant wishes involving time manipulation, resurrection, immortality, or creating more One Wish Willows. Unintended consequences. Tabby Cat Curiosities is not responsible for wish misinterpretations. Use at your own risk. Users assume all responsibility for wish outcomes. So that is what is actually on the box. The only other thing is on the side of the box, on the little triangle side, is the Eye of Ra, which I'll talk about in a little bit. So that is the One Wish Willow box design, the One Wish Willow fun facts, and the One Wish Willow itself. And I found it because I looked it up online, and you can find like makes of the box online. So I'll post that too. The last thing I'll say about the One Wish Willow is that there's an interview with Collider with Curry Barker where he talks about the One Wish Willow, and they ask him if there's like a rule book or a deep lore for the Willow itself, and he says that there's not like huge lore behind who made this or why it does what it does. He purposely leaves an air of mystery around it, and he actually said he thinks that the lore isn't so much for him to write. He likes leaving it open so that the audience can kind of come up with the lore and their interpretation and the deeper meaning of it on their own. He also says in that same interview that it is possible to make wishes that come true without having horrific side effects. So it's not like the monkey's paw in that way. And it can be, quote, beaten. And one example of that is the man that works at the magic shop where they buy this at. He obviously made a wish because Bear asks him to make a wish to undo his wish. And he's like, hey man, I've already done my wish. And he seems fine. So whatever his wish was, he's okay. So there is a way to get around it and win whatever your wish may be.
Yeah, and we saw that with the fake Reddit stand-in website, the Threadit, or whatever it's called, where people were saying it doesn't work, or a bunch of people were saying actually it does work and everything's going great. So there certainly appears to be a way that you could do this in a not terrible way.
Yeah, exactly. And it is funny because people talk about that website. They're like, well, why would this have not worked for some people? But I mean, it's either possible that they didn't state their wish clearly enough, or maybe they didn't read the rules and they wished for something that they couldn't and therefore did not get away with it. So yeah, it's just interesting. There's different theories as to why some people's wishes didn't work.
Yeah, or like maybe they, whatever they wished for killed them almost immediately afterwards.
Yes, that could definitely be one too. So let's talk a little bit about what actually happened to Nikki because of this wish. And I want to talk about the cat theory that the internet has gone crazy with and what I came up with about it now. Before we get into the cat theory, I want to be clear with what Indy and Curry Barker, what their intent was for Nikki before we get into it. So in multiple interviews, they've been very deliberate about how Nikki's character was played, and they're both adamant that Nikki was never possessed. This is not a possession film. That is not what happened. They wanted her character to come across as like a jealous girlfriend type of role, and they wanted her to really lean into that whiny and desperate aspect of that. And they also intentionally tried to keep away from anger and keep anger out of it because it wasn't about being angry and threatening. They wanted to explore the manipulative side of a toxic relationship more than the threatening threatening, angry side of it. So that is what they leaned into with Nikki. And that's why she has those like really whiny moments and those kind of like childish moments. They just wanted her to come across as a very desperate and over the top jealous girlfriend.
So, and I know earlier you had mentioned this was like a toxic, codependent relationship. It didn't come across to me as that. I mean, I guess you could categorize it that way. Like, it's toxic because, but the because is Nikki's autonomy has been ripped away from her, and it isn't really her that's doing this and acting out in this way. And that's all happening because someone is forcing all of this on her. So it's not, I mean, the symptoms might be the same as a toxic relationship, but it's the reason that it's toxic matters a lot here.
Oh, without a doubt. Like Nikki is not, she is playing that role because this wish altered her to become that person, not because Nikki would ever actually be that person in a relationship. Curry Barker wanted to explore toxic relationships, and the way he did it is by making a wish, and Nikki lost her autonomy. So nothing about the way Nikki is acting is her fault. Right. And the reason the relationship is toxic isn't because of her. So I think it's a better representation of an anxious avoidant attachment style and an anxious attachment style coming together, which is just a straight up recipe for disaster. So an anxious avoidant attachment style is someone who they are anxious, and their way of dealing with that is to simply not deal with it. So they just don't engage with it, and they remove themselves as much as possible from the situation and kind of detach from it. And then there's the anxious attachment style, which is the complete opposite, which is a person who is anxious and therefore needs constant reassurance and attention and love, and just being told over and over and over again that, you know, whatever they need to hear to reassure themselves that they're loved in this situation. So when those two things come together, it amplifies both, because the anxious attachment style gets louder because they're not getting what they need out of this relationship, and the anxious avoidant pulls himself back more because they're overwhelmed with how loud the other person is becoming, and it just doesn't work. So I think that's what this is looking into.
Oh yeah, that does sound like a recipe for disaster, and that's before you even talk about who's a Virgo and who's a Capricorn or whatever. Like, throw that on top of it.
Right. Yeah. And yes, there's obviously more layers to it and more things that feed into it. But I think this is exploring less of codependence and more that kind of relationship dynamic.
It's also super interesting how, I know when we were looking at the schedule for our episodes, we had kind of briefly talked about, you know, is it wise to do Obsession so soon after Together? But these movies are nothing alike. It's touching on themes of relationships and control and all that stuff, and it's wildly different.
I couldn't agree more with you. They are so different, and I do think Together is way more of that codependent relationship thing, and it's really well done in a completely different way. And Together just seems so much lighter at the end of the day.
Oh,
and
yeah.
like has that potential of like a happy ending, where this one is the complete opposite, and it is so dark. And Obsession never had love. It never had love in it at all. It only had this idea of love and this obsession about it, where Together I do think love was present, or at least there was a relationship before that was made out of love, where in Obsession it never happened.
Yeah, and Together there are no clear villains in Together. You could argue that Jamie is a villain, or at least villainous. You could argue that the cave is actually a villain, but the two main characters are not villainous and they are not villains, and that is not the case with Obsession.
Exactly. We have gone way off script, but that was a fantastic discussion and I loved it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So let's somehow jump from that back to the cat theory, because I do want to talk about it more.
Let's jump like a kitty cat.
Let's jump like a kitty cat. Okay, so the cat thing. I think it's perfect that we talked about all of that before we talk about the cat theory, because it's going to play into it a bit. Let's start with the opening of the movie. So the opening was actually reshot completely. The original opening of the movie, it was supposed to be a close-up of Bear, and then it was supposed to zoom from Bear down to the dead cat, and then it was supposed to pan from the dead cat to the TV, and we were supposed to see that Bear was just sitting in his living room with a dead cat watching a romance movie. And that was how this movie was originally supposed to start.
Ew.
Yes. So Bear was definitely originally much darker from the start than he is in this current version of Obsession. And there's a couple reasons that Curry liked this. One of it was that beginning mirrors the ending perfectly. Like from the zoom in to the TV to the dead thing laying on the floor, but instead of the cat, it would have been Bear, to someone sitting on the couch. So it was a perfect mirror image of each other.
Oh, I do like when movies do that.
Yes. And it was really hard for him to let that go. Like he said he clung on to that till the last minute, but they did ultimately decide that monologue at the beginning of the movie was better for it.
I agree. Because like when you realize what's going on with that monologue, like at first it seems like it's going to be something sweet, but then you realize what it is, and it's a little cringy because they're making a waiter do this. Like she's on the clock and she's taking time out of her busy schedule to do this, and she seems totally fine with it. Whatever, maybe it was the greatest thing that happened all day, but I think it's kind of messed up to do weird stuff to your servers in restaurants. So that was cringy. Some of what he was saying personally was making me cringe a little bit, and then his friend was kind of echoing that. But you get a sense of where the movie is going because he's trying to confess his interest in Nikki, and he's anxious about it. You're getting like a lot of insight into that character. So I think that was well done. I think if they had opened with what Curry Barker originally wanted, you would have known too soon that Bear was the bad guy, and you would have been maybe against him a little bit too early. And I think the way that they played with that, is he bad, is he not, is kind of brilliant.
Yes, I agree. Because like you said, it would have been too evil too early, and you never would have sympathized or empathized with Bear. But wondering if maybe his intentions were genuine in the beginning and kind of slowly easing you into the fact that he's evil, I think makes him more relatable and makes you more engaged as an audience. Obviously, by the end, he's not very relatable. At least I hope he's not. But yeah, I do think it changes the movie in a good way, and I'm glad they did it. But I do love the idea of that opening. And I think what's important about that opening is that in that moment, we would have learned right away that Bear is a few things. He is neglectful. He is lazy. He's probably depressed. And then he's obsessed with the idea of love. There's a fun little Easter egg in the movie, too, that when he's looking up the symptoms and the side effects of Molly, you can also see his search history on the side of his computer that gives us more detail into who he is. And in June, he was looking up nursing homes, and well, actually, first he looked up old people homes. He didn't look up nursing homes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So that shows you how much he cared about his grandma. And then in July, he looks up oxycodone. So we can assume his grandma's died at this point, or he's helping her or something. For some reason, he had to look up that medication. And then in the last 7 days, he's looked up how to woo a girl, how to impress a girl, how to flirt, how to know if you've been friend zoned. And then yesterday, he looked up classic romance movies and how to play Green Day's Basket Case on the marimba.
Basket case?
Yeah, from Green Day, and how to play it on the marimba, which is a wooden instrument that you hit with those like rubber mallets. So he was looking up how to play Green Day's Basket Case on the marimba. I don't know. Maybe that's a nod at one of like Curry Barker's old shorts or something. I have no idea.
Do you have the time to listen to me whine? I'm trying to imagine this because a marimba is basically a big old xylophone, right? Kind of a wooden xylophone type of thing.
Yeah, it is. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Am I paranoid or am I just stoned? I guess.
Oh my God. That's interesting. I want to know more. Was there a marimba in the store?
Well, probably. There probably was, because I do work in a music shop. But the more I look at the lyrics of Basket Case, it does make sense. Do you have the time to listen to me whine about nothing and everything all at once? Melodramatic fools, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. Sometimes I give myself the creeps. Sometimes my mind plays tricks on me. And then there's a line, she says it's lack of sex that's bringing me down. I went to a whore. She said my life's a bore. It definitely relates to Bear. Like the lyrics are Bear.
Yeah, parts of it. And it's kind of like that self-deprecating, I feel sorry for myself and I hate myself. And everybody I go to for advice and help also agrees that I suck. I wonder if they're either, like you said, nodding at a previous short from the That's a Bad Idea YouTube channel, or if this is like they're making fun of a specific guy. And then I'm trying to imagine hearing that song on the marimba, because Like, if you imagine what it would sound like to have a xylophone, but it's wood instead of metal, that's the sound this instrument makes.
Yeah, it's often in playgrounds, and it's got that like hollow kind of dung noise to it when you hit it. I don't know. I can't picture it happening, but it's so funny.
Wait, I'm going to Google.
We're so off track. I love it.
Don't care. It's worth it. There are 2 videos that pop up immediately. I regret to inform you that this is beautiful.
I'm watching one right now too.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Well, I will be posting this on our page.
Yes. We simply must. I agree. We are so off track, but
Okay.
the universe needs this. The universe needs this.
It does.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
Oh man.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
So-
if Bear had just put some time into that, then maybe things would have gone differently. Because I feel that if I was like in a situationship and I learned that the person that might be interested in me was playing songs like this on a marimba, I'd be like, okay, I feel like you have more to say. And I'd be interested.
You know how you said the beginning of this movie would make you cringe? I have dated men who play instruments and try to sing to me. I can't. Like, if you try to, I can't.
Not sing to me.
Yeah.
I get that. That would make me cringe too. But if they were just like, this is my hobby, I'd be like, okay, I am intrigued.
That's
Yeah.
a cool hobby. Yeah. That's fair.
But based on the other search history results that we have, are they at all trying to suggest that Bear killed his grandma?
Holy shit. No, I don't think so. However, if he did overdose her with oxycodone just to get the house, maybe. Whoa. Did we stumble across something huge here?
Well, I don't know. As much has been said about this movie online and literally everywhere else, I feel like somebody must have had asked this question. So I don't know. It's just, to go from old people home to Oxycontin or whatever it is, and then someone has written, do not eat on the bottle. That feels like there might be something else there.
Yeah. And then to go from that to immediately into how to impress a girl and how to flirt. Like, was he just trying to get rid of his grandma so that he could move on to Nikki and not worry about his grandma?
Well, maybe. And I just had 2 thoughts happen at the same time. One, all those toxic bro podcasts and influencers, they talk a lot about material wealth. Like, basically, you need to get rich. You're a loser if you can't get rich. And if he knew he had an inheritance that included like a house and whatever else, that I could see that twisted logic. And also, you notice the weird sweaters that Bear wears the entire time, right?
I did very much notice his wardrobe, yes.
They're like old man sweaters. So I had always thought, well, it's his, this is his grandma's house. Perhaps the grandfather preceded her in death. And so he's just wearing his grandfather's old sweaters. But now I can't get the line out of my head. I want to wear your skin like a sweater.
Oh, that's creepy. Yeah.
So did he kill his grandma and now he's wearing her sweaters or his grandfather's sweaters as like a trophy?
You've convinced me that Bear killed his grandma. I think like maybe he was trying to get her out of the house and into a nursing home, but she wouldn't go. And he wanted the house to himself so he could invite Nikki over. And so he killed his grandma. And to get the inheritance to say like, look, I have a house and wealth and I can support you. And
yeah, because that's what all my shitty incel podcast bros tell me is important.
yes. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but I did watch an interview with the actor who plays Bear, and he said that his personal headcanon is that Bear just doom scrolls his phone all day and he gets all of his relationship advice and his how to be a man and all of that from the internet and weird Reddit sites and things like that. So it's all fitting. Maybe Bear's even more evil than we think he is.
And he should have just put all that energy into the marimba. Things would have worked out differently.
It would have worked out differently. Wait, okay. You've made me change. All right, we were going to talk about the cat. We're going to jump into how evil Bear is, and then we'll come back to the cat because we're on evil Bear. We're on evil Bear. So I want to know, when do you think Bear knew for sure that the way Nikki was acting towards him was the One Wish Willow and not because she actually loved him?
For me, it was when he called that hotline.
Okay. I mean, that's a good moment. And absolutely. But according to the screenplay or the original script and some other things, it's actually much sooner than that. And I'm about to make you hate Bear more than you probably already did. So according to the screenplay, he has doubts before Ian calls him during the dinner scene that happens in this movie where she goes, no, 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 no. That dinner scene is the exact moment that he realizes that all of this is being caused by the One Wish Willow. It's when Ian calls him. That's when it all sinks into him that this is not Nikki that's sitting at the table with him. And before that, he thought some of it might be genuine, but this is the exact moment too that shit really starts to go south. So the exact moment that he realizes that Nikki's acting this way because of the wish is also the moment that stuff starts to get ugly.
Yeah, so that also makes sense because when Ian called at the dinner scene, he's telling him, hey, something is weird. This dad thing doesn't make sense. She's lying about it. There's something weird happening with her mentally. It's like she's snapped and she is a different person who is infatuated with him. So that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yes. And then he goes back down and that's when he's like, does your dad actually have cancer? Because it's clicked for him that she's been lying to him and manipulating him because of the wish that he made. And there's a really important line in the dinner scene and they write it out a little bit more in the script. But do you remember at the end when he says it doesn't matter to him at all?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a quote in the screenplay itself right after he says this line where it says, quote, Bear, lost in thought, realizes his yearning for her overshadows all. Her actions, her lies, it all fades, only her presence matters. His response reveals a disregard for truth, showing a readiness to ignore darker realities for affection, hinting at a deeply flawed person. End quote.
Oh, geez. Yeah, he absolutely sucks.
He absolutely sucks. And then do you remember what is the next scene immediately after that moment when he says it doesn't matter to him and he realizes that she's being controlled by the One Wish Willow?
Yeah, I think I see where you're going with this. And I think maybe we should comment that if discussions of sexual violence are difficult for you, you may want to skip ahead at least a couple minutes.
Yes, we hopefully won't go into it too much, but I think it is important that we do at least touch on it here. So yeah, protect your mental health. We'll catch you in a couple minutes. So this is the point where we find out that Bear really, really, really sucks. So this scene changes because now at this point, knowing that he knows that the One Wish Willow is influencing Nikki, we know without a doubt that he is aware he is taking advantage of Nikki and her autonomy in this situation. And you could argue that even if he didn't know for sure that it was the One Wish Willow, he definitely knows that there's something wrong with Nikki mentally in this moment, that she's not completely sound, that she's lying about her dad, that something is wrong. And he chooses to bring her home and proceed with this scene anyway. And I watched an interview with Indy. She does call this scene an intimacy scene. So that's what I'm going to go with as well. But I'm not saying that that's what this scene really is. But it was originally written to be even longer and a little bit worse.
I'm glad they didn't do that.
Me too. But I'm going to read it for you here because I think it's telling of who Bear is. In the original screenplay, Bear and Nikki are making out during the scene. So before it goes to the next level, Nikki does one of those things where she breaks out of herself and she comes back into real Nikki here. And I'm just going to read exactly from the screenplay what it says. So, quote, Nikki locks eyes with Bear. Her expression shifts to sheer panic. With a frantic shove, she pushes him away and lets out a blood-curdling scream, her body trembling. Nikki, Bear, what the fuck? Bear remains unfazed, his eerie, calm demeanor chilling. Within moments, she's back, kissing his stomach. The disturbance registers as nothing more than a fleeting inconvenience to him.
That is awful. And
awful.
Yeah, it is awful. I'm glad they left it out. I don't think we needed to see that to know that Bear was the villain.
It is true. I think it maybe would have brought up the villainness earlier in the movie, but I am glad that they left it out too. Honestly, the scene was shocking enough as is. I didn't need more of it.
Yeah, it really was. Like, she looks kind of detached and that's enough. And I think at this point in the movie, you know, she's not herself. So this is already wrong without
adding that in.
Yeah, without including that.
Yes, which is why I'm sure why they took it out. So I am glad they did it. The last thing I'll say about this is that in the original script, it also ends with, quote, Bear's smile fades, a subtle acknowledgement of what he never thought he was. So not only does he do it here, but like he has a moment where he realizes what he did. So he is, without a doubt, a pure villain. So if there's anyone who wants to defend Bear, go away. We don't like you here.
Yeah, and there's elements of him that certainly feel like what a lot of guys like this think about themselves. Like, oh, I'm the victim, and oh, I'm just trying to be the nice guy, and nice guys never win, and da-da-da. And it's so dumb, and it's the thoughts of an immature piece of shit.
Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, so let's step away from that and continue to talk about Bear and who Bear is and who the director thinks Bear is by talking about that poster that's present on the wall behind him actually during this scene. So I mentioned that there is a poster on the wall here. It's of a clown named Pedrolino. And so Pedrolino, you've probably seen him, and you're also probably way lost in our notes. I want to show you Pedrolino. If you scroll down to the last page of our notes, the second to last page, you'll see a picture of a clown.
Yep, I'm on it.
Okay, so this clown, it's a character who came from Commedia dell'arte, which is like an Italian style of art. And this character, he came up multiple times in multiple plays. And he was a character in early plays where he serves as a loyal but bumbling servant. Often he finds himself the victims of tricks and misunderstandings, and he's most well known for his unrequited love. Especially, there's a specific character that he's in love with that ends up falling in love with someone else. So he's this kind of goofy, love-stricken, emo clown that feels really sorry for himself.
Not an emo clown. Oh my God.
That's exactly what he is. And I think a lot of people have probably seen him. He's this clown that wears like all white. He has this poofy collar and his face is just painted white. And he's just kind of like this goofy, sad clown character. Have you ever seen him before in media, or have you truly never heard of this clown?
I've definitely never heard of him, but I have seen similar artwork to what I'm looking at right now. But I couldn't have told you what it was from.
Yeah, so that's what it's from. It's just he occurred in a lot of plays in Italy. It's just a type of character. The melancholy, naive, gentle clown that doesn't ever find the love that he deserves. So by having that poster on the wall, that's another example of who Bear is as a character. And that's just another little Easter egg or something that tells us who Bear is.
Is it who Bear thinks he is?
I think it is, because he's the one who chose his poster and put it on the wall. So he sees himself as like this love-struck fool.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So that's a little bit about why he wished for the love instead of asking Nikki for it, right? Because he thinks no matter what, love can't find him. It's something he'll always want. Like, that is his personality. That is who he is. So if he did actually tell Nikki that he loved her and she said yes, there's this huge part of his personal identity that no longer exists. He can't be the helpless, hopeless romantic that no one will ever love. So that's another reason why he doesn't tell Nikki who he is, outside of him just being a true coward and awful person.
Okay, this brings up something I'm super curious your take on. What did Nikki wish for with her One Wish Willow at the end?
Oh, that's such a good question, because I think it could go one of two ways, right? It could be, did Nikki wish that Bear loved her the same way that she loved Bear, or did she wish to be free? Which one did she wish for?
Or is it something else entirely?
Oh, I think it's one of those two things. What do you think it was?
I don't know. But the reason I'm asking is because if her wish was for Bear to love her the way that she did, then he never loved her like that. And that kind of ties into the Pedrolino of it all, where he feels doomed to always have this unrequited love. So he's actually a self-fulfilling prophecy. So he's incapable of this.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I don't think Bear ever loved her for a second. I think he loved the idea of her. I think he loved the idea of falling for someone who's like cool and perfect, and just it's something that's unachievable for him. I think that's his personality trait. I don't think he ever loved her, though. If he loved her, he wouldn't have done any of this. There's no way.
Or the other way to think about that is if she snapped the one wish willow and he suddenly did love her and her wish was not to be free of him, but he suddenly loved her as much as she loved him, if that's why he stopped trying to reverse his suicide attempt, because he knew that only his death would set her free.
Oh, I like that. My initial interpretation of it was just that he forgot. Like, he was immediately so in love with Nikki that he just had to leave the bathroom and he had to go kiss her. It didn't matter what else was happening. He just forgot. But if, yes, he realized in that moment, okay, I truly love her and I need to set her free and let her have her autonomy back, and therefore I need to die. I really like that. I like that interpretation of the ending.
He definitely knows that. Like, the customer support line and also the guy behind the counter at the witch store both tell him he could end this if he just kills himself.
Oh, yeah, he knows it. I mean, that's why he's in there trying to do it. But then he chickens out at the last second because that's who Bear is. So, yeah. Oh, I like that. So, yeah, she could have wished for a lot of things. Okay, she could have wished for two things, either for Bear to love her as much as she loved him, or for her to be free and to be herself. Either way, the wish came true by Bear dying. I don't know. It's good.
There is so much to talk about and think about and ponder and mull over and speculate about in this movie. And I think that's why there are all these conversations. You and I have both consumed a lot of media about this, and we still, I think, are hitting the record for our longest record session right now.
Without a doubt. And it's funny because I'm like, do we even talk about the cat thing at this point?
We should do it. We're here. We should do it.
Okay. So, yeah, that's Bear. That's the ending. That's all the deep darkness of this movie. I guess let's end with a fun thing and bring it back to the cat.
Please. We always bring it back to the cat.
I know. Well, that's what I was so excited to talk about this, because I was like, we're us. We have to talk about the cat. So I don't know about you, but I originally saw the theories of this cat thing come from the Obsession fan base. I did not see it come from the cast and crew themselves. And at first I was like, okay, that's a fun theory, but I'm not going to dig into it. This is just fan made. There's probably not that much to it. But the more I looked into it, and the more I watched interviews and the more I learned about this movie, I'm like, oh my God, this cat thing is legit. And Indy, the actress Indy, she didn't say that she did this inspired by a cat or because of a cat, but she's saying that people are sending her this theory and she really likes it. Like, she's totally on board with it. So if Indy's on board with it, I'm on board with it.
Yeah, she seems wicked smart. I'm prepared to accept whatever she has.
Yes. So this theory is that when Bear made his wish, that part of the deceased cat somehow entered into Nikki. So whether the cat soul took over Nikki's body, or an essence of the cat came into Nikki, or Nikki just got confused because of the cat, and cats kind of symbolize this ultimate like love for their owners kind of thing. And that's what Nikki based all of her love off of, was the love that a cat would have for its owner. Somehow, the reason Nikki acted the way she did throughout this movie is because of the cat. And I think there's something to this. And at the very least, there are some huge parallels between Nikki and the cat. So let's first look at some of the mannerisms and the way Nikki acts throughout the movie. So your bloody shovel scene, the scene that you have described as pterodactyl walk, does it remind you maybe of someone if they were, say, dressed up in like a cat costume and were trying to mimic the movements of a cat?
Oh, like when they Halloween backwards?
Yes, like with their little paws out and you do the little like Halloween movement and like you lick your hand kind of move.
Oh, I was thinking of when they arch their backs and they like hop backwards.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of like when her arms are out in front of her, T-Rex style.
Oh,
and
yes.
She kind of
like,
like paws the air with them. Mm-hmm. Kind of like making, what do you call it? Kneading dough? The way cats
making
do.
biscuits.
Making biscuits. So that's what I think of. Like, so I think those movements are kind of cat like. Though when she kind of goes in reverse like that at the end, I could see that movement being kind of the Halloween cat arch back, moving backwards, because that's what cats do. They spring or jump backwards like that. So it could fit there too.
Oh, you know what else? When she has that flower pot in front of her face You ever see a cat who like you can see their entire body, but they think they're hiding because they're hiding their face?
Because they're hiding their face behind a flower? Yes. Yes, I have.
And the big old predator eyes that they get, that could be the eyeball thing too.
Well, yes, we're going to talk about the eyeball thing. I have a whole section about the eyeball thing.
Oh, God.
Yes. So we have the movements. They're cat-like. I think there's something there. And then we have some other things that she does that are very cat-like. When Bear leaves the house and she stands in front of the door and immediately pees herself and then stays there. Obviously, there's some realistic reasons for why she did this. She's being manipulated into maximizing her time with Bear. So she was holding her bladder until he left so she didn't lose a minute with him. And she just can't do anything without him. So her whole purpose in life is to stand there and wait. But have you ever had an animal that has separation anxiety?
No, but I have known people who have.
Yes. So then you would know that one of the things that's very common for animals to do when they have separation anxiety is to pee on the floor when their owners leave.
Well, and anything with cats too, like when they are upset, their tummy's upset and they can have lots of problems that involve their urinary tract and other things. Like it's pretty common in cats.
Yes, vomiting as well is also my one cat. They have very sensitive stomach. He vomits all the time. It's the worst.
Oh, and also anybody who's ever had a cat with any of these problems knows that they never do it on the hardwood floor. It's always right on the carpet.
It's always on the carpet. Why? Why? It's the worst. So yes, I think that where she's standing there waiting for him to come back, like she's having separation anxiety in the same way that a cat would. And what else does a cat have? The only thing that cat had, Sandy had, was him. So when he leaves, Sandy's just waiting for him to come back. And that is what Nikki turns into. It's just a love-obsessed cat.
Oh, poor baby.
I know, it is so sad. And then the other thing, so we all cat owners know that one way cats show love is by bringing little gifts. And those gifts are oftentimes dead things.
Yeah, gross dead things. Yep.
Yep, gross dead things. So if it's an outdoor cat, they're going to bring you like little mice or little birds. If it's an indoor cat, they'll bring you a toy that looks like a mouse. And the reason they do that is because they are trying to take care of you. They're trying to feed you. So they go out, they get a kill, they bring it back, they try to feed you. And when you don't eat it, they get upset. So the first thing that Nikki does after their like weird little night together is she brings Bear his dead thing, his cat. So she's bringing him a little cat gift. And then later she doesn't understand why Bear doesn't eat his little dead cat gift. And she cooks it up and gives it to him for lunch.
And the way every cat owner who has had a cat bring a dead mouse or a bird is like, ew, no. And the cat is like, what? I thought you would like it. Like Nikki basically says the same thing.
Yes, exactly. Nikki's like, what's wrong with you? Like this is what I'm taking care of you. Like you're supposed to love this. Why aren't you eating it? What's wrong with you?
Can I get a thank you? I worked really hard for that chipmunk.
Exactly. So that is all the ways I caught throughout the movie that Nikki behaves like a cat. And I think there's something to it. Like it's a little bit more than a coincidence at that point. Don't you think?
I will say, after I saw Obsession in theater, I did see some of this cat theory online and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I wasn't here for it. But now that we've talked about all of this, I could see there being a little bit more to it than nothing.
Agreed. Like we're probably digging into it more than Curry Barker intended it to be dug into, but I'm here for it. Like I also immediately dismissed it and now I'm like, no, this is it. This is it.
We are turning this into a horror litter box.
We are our first horror litter box. Okay, so we talked about how she acts like a cat. Let's talk about some of the more symbolic cat-like things that happen throughout the movie. So a lot of this has to do with the eyes. So you mentioned the glint in Nikki's eye throughout the movie whenever she's fake Nikki or whatever you want to call it. And we also talked about the tiger's eye, which is also known as a cat's eye gemstone that Nikki gives Bear. And I think all of those things are related. And I think there's another layer to it. We haven't talked about it yet, but on the One Wish Willow box, there's one symbol on it, and that symbol is the Eye of Ra. And I think those three things are linked together. So let's get into it. Let's start with the Eye of Ra. It's usually depicted as a disc or the right eye of Ra. And it's typically paired with the left eye, which is of Horus. And the eye of Ra it's alluding to the sun god. So Ra is a sun god. And then the eye of Horus is like the lunar other half of it. So you have your sun and your moon, your left and your right, your bright and your dark.
Yeah, and anyone who's ever looked up anything to do with ancient Egypt has seen this symbol. It's the iconic symbol of ancient Egypt, that eye drawing.
Yes. Yeah. It's like everyone has seen it. And there's so much history and lore behind it that I'm not going to be able to get into in this episode. But I did read about it, quite a bit of it. And there was one thing in particular that stuck out to me. So this eye is associated with Ra, but it's also associated with many Egyptian gods who took a feline kind of form. And it's associated with a lot of the lioness deities. And in particular, it's associated with the deity Sekhmet, who I believe is the daughter of Ra. And they were equated with this eye. So this eye is a very like feline kind of representation. More than that, there's an interesting story about Sekhmet. And in the story, Ra sends her down to Earth to destroy these mortals who conspired against him. And in this myth, Sekhmet goes down there and she does destroy the mortals, but she has this bloodlust that's not quenched at the end of the battle. So she goes on this bloody rampage that just lays Egypt to waste and almost destroys all of humanity until they trick her and stop her. So the story is the example of someone wishing for something and it getting out of hand. Or you could kind of interpret it in a way where it mimics Nikki's actions, where it stems from this place of devotion. So Sekhmet's actions stemmed from devotion and love to her father, but it escalates into this insane violence that just can't be stopped. And so I think that there's something there with the eye and that story, and the eye of Ra in particular, and why Curry Barker chose it.
It's like the precursor to a monkey's paw.
Right, like some older lore with it. And then if I haven't totally lost you with this eye nonsense, there's a little bit more I want to talk about. So the eye of Ra, like I said, it's known for being the right eye symbol. And when Nikki comes to during the party scene, the way she injures herself is by trying to stab out her right eye. And then we've talked about how there's the glint in her eye when she's freaky Nikki, which is very similar to the way a cat's eye glints, like a real cat. But also, I don't know if you've ever seen a cat's eye gemstone. They kind of hit the light that exact same way. So I think potentially there's something more to this, where there's the cat theory, and then there's also like the cat's eye, and then there's the callback to Ra and the eye and the power of it, and that power getting out of control. And it's just there's something there. I don't know that I fully unpacked it, but I think this feline presence, I think this eye symbolism, and I think all of that is important. And I hope we see more of it in the future stuff that Curry Barker makes, because I think there's something there.
So what I'm hearing is that in the extended version of this film, we get to watch Nikki eat Bear's face.
I will say that's not what the actors and Curry have said in interviews, but yes, I mean, cats do eat their dead owners, so.
That's interesting, because the Eye of Ra does seem like a little bit out of place on the packaging for the One Wish Willow. So there has to be something more to it. It's not just like, oh, I'll stick a cool symbol on there. Especially because we just learned that Curry Barker he thinks very carefully about logos. So that wouldn't be like an accidental, just like, this is fun, kind of a little throw it in there symbol.
No, there's definitely something more there. At the very least, there is something important about the cat. What that is, at least to me, is that Bear treats Nikki and the cat the exact same way. They are parallels. They are these beings who lived for Bear and only Bear, and kind of, even for the cat, as much as we hate to admit this, probably against their autonomy, because like, we choose a cat, bring them into their home, we're the only thing they know, of course they're gonna love us, what else do they have? So he has these things that love him unconditionally and completely, and he doesn't care about them at all. He neglects them. He does not care for them. They get sick. He doesn't get them help. He doesn't feed them. He doesn't give them water. He doesn't take care of them.
And I think we really see this too, because the cat and the grandma are both kind of only used by Bear as vehicles to get empathy. Like, we don't see him really grieve. We don't see him talk about either his grandma or his cat with any sort of like reminiscence or fondness or anything. They're just a way for him to get empathy.
Yes, they're just tools in his weird little manipulative game of whatever he's got going on in his head. Yeah, he doesn't actually grieve them at all. He literally throws one in the garbage, and then he hasn't done anything to his grandmother's home at all. So clearly he just doesn't care about anyone besides himself, and it's so evident throughout the whole movie. So yeah, it's
wow. And like we said, like the fact that we have been able to sit here and talk about this for over 4 hours at this point, like it proves that there is a lot to dig through and a lot to unearth, which you certainly have, Charlie.
yeah, it was a lot. They will never be this long again unless we get another fantastic movie like this.
Right. Well, you say it's a lot, but I think when this episode airs, we are going to get dozens, if not hundreds of comments about the things that we didn't talk about, because there is so much. There's so many different ways you can view this and so many different ways you can talk about this and analyze it. And I think we should probably go into what we think this movie is, other than brilliant, because my vote is that this movie is definitely brilliant. So where did you land on this? What is this? Is it horror? Is it tragedy? What is it?
It is such a tragedy to me. It's also horror. I mean, it's definitely horror. You can't ignore the fact that it's horror, but it is a tragedy, like a classic tragedy, a modern day Romeo and Juliet retelling. It's so tragic, and that's what I think of it.
Yeah, I think what makes it the horror is that Romeo and Juliet didn't lose their autonomy. Like, you could argue that there were pressures that were bigger than themselves and all that, but they were still making choices, and maybe that some of those choices were bad, but Nikki didn't have a choice here. So for me, it's definitely horror. I think there are parts of it that are very sad and tragic. At the end of the day, for me, the thing that makes it horror is that there's no choice, and I felt that way about Together as well. Like, I can understand why some people might see it a little differently, but for me, their autonomy was removed, their choice was removed, so it's horror because they're not in control of what's happening to them in a very personal and private and intimate and really awful way. And the same is true for what happens to Nikki and what happens to her friends. And for me, that's what makes it horror. It's effective horror. It's horror that people have been talking about since it first came out, and they are still talking about it now, and I think they will continue to talk about, because I think it resonates for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons, and those reasons I think are really important to talk about. So yeah, definitely horror for me.
It's funny because you made me think about, like, okay, I think this one's definitely horror and tragedy, but I labeled Together as a rom-com. Why did I do that? And I agree with you that the loss of autonomy makes it horror, but there must have been something else for me to come up with those connections. I think what makes this horror for me is that at its core, it's evil. There wasn't love. And Together, there was a potential that at its core, it was love. Maybe there was something that those two wanted that they just needed the push to find. But in this, it was never there. Like, it is built and based off of something gross and evil and wrong. And so, yes, this one's horror, whereas Together was a rom-com for me. It's a little different.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it's interesting how you and I both see both of these movies a little bit differently, but in a way that is still really interesting to talk about. And I can see your point of view and you can see mine. And I think those conversations are going to continue to happen with listeners and with other fans, and with just fans of this movie in general. So I think that's wonderful. And I think that's why we love doing this and why we love digging around in our little horror sandbox. And I did want to mention this. I thought I would have gotten into it a lot sooner than 4.5 hours later, but I have to say, this movie is speaking with Gen Z in a way that I've never seen this with another movie. My teenager went and saw this with his older brother when it first came out, and I wasn't able to go with him. When he came home from seeing this, he ran up to me, grabbed my shoulders, and said, with intensity that he rarely draws, he said, "We are going back and you and I are seeing this. You are coming with me. You are going to see this movie." And he was obsessed with this movie for weeks. And I think he still is. So I did. I went and saw it with him and 2 of his friends that he dragged along for the fun. And it was kind of funny because I have not reacted this way to a horror movie in theaters in probably years, but it gave me chills. The jump scares all got me, and I had visceral reactions. And when we got out into the lobby, I looked at his friends and I was like, "I'm sorry. Also, are you still his friend?"
That's funny. I'm sure they were. I mean, every kid has to have their horror moment. And I love that this is so many people's horror moment. And it's perfect because we've talked about how horror is having a resurgence right now. And I think this one just came out at the right time. It was made in the right way to speak with the current generation. And it's really exciting. And I'm glad to add it to the current horror, I don't know, rise that's happening.
Yeah, and it's a different kind of horror, right? Because horror is always around. It's always been there, but there's something different happening now, and I'm so here for it. Oh my God.
Me too. It's far better than like 80s slashers. Sorry, 80s slashers fans, but this is my horror.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool too, because like you never want to force your hobbies on your kids, right? And I've always I've loved horror since I can, as far back as I can remember. And it's really cool to see some of my kids really loving it too, and I'm not forcing them to love it. Like they're loving it organically and for their own reasons, and I think that's really neat. And watching him process that movie and talk about well, here's why Bear's the villain, and this is why this theory online doesn't make sense or whatever. It's really cool to have those conversations with him and just kind of experience it with him. And this feels like a Gen Z movie in ways that I don't know that I can explain very well, but I see it in the way he and his friends react to the movie, and I really love it.
Yes. And before we put our shovels away for the night, what will we dig into next week?
Next week, we will be checking into the 2007 film 1408.
I'm excited for that one. It's going to be a good change of pace.
Yeah, I think there's intense themes in that one for sure, just like all horror movies, but I think it's probably going to be a little less intense and probably a lot shorter of an episode than this one is.
Yes, for our sakes, I kind of hope so. But this was fun. I'm glad we did it.
No, it was good. I hope the listeners enjoyed it because we put a lot into it.
Me too. And that's going to do it for us today, listeners. So may the horrors persist.
And be so careful what you wish for. Thanks for listening to Horror Sandbox. No generative AI was used in the making of this podcast. For show notes, credits, and contact info, check out our website, horrorsandbox.com. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Horror Sandbox. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/horrorsandbox. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with all the horror fans in your life.
What's that sound?